Namaste and greetings. I, Purvi Narayan, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today marks the inaugural day of EGBVF, Ending Gender-Based Violence Fellowship, an online international spring school program. A 3-month online immersive certificate training course on EGBV International responses, community initiatives, and systematic interventions. This program is organized by the IMPRI Gender Impact Study Center, GISC, and aims to provide an in-depth exploration of gender-based violence, equipping participants with critical knowledge, analytical skills, and tools to drive impactful change in community, governance, and policy frameworks. Gender-based violence, GBV, is a pervasive global issue affecting individuals across various social, economic, and cultural contexts. It manifests in multiple forms, including physical, psychological, sexual, and economic abuse, often reinforced by the systematic inequalities and power imbalances that we all face. Addressing gender-based violence requires a multidimensional approach that incorporates legal policy, healthcare, and community-driven interventions. Through interactive discussions, expert-led sessions, and collaborative learning, this fellowship will explore key areas such as the criminal justice system, public healthcare responses, community-driven interventions, child sexual abuse interventions, workplace sexual harassment, anti-trafficking strategies, mental health support, and intersectional approaches to gender justice, including LGBTQIA+ perspectives. This fellowship is designed to foster critical discourse, interdisciplinary learning, and collaborative action to combat gender-based violence at multiple levels. By participating in this course, participants will gain insights into legal, policy, and grassroots interventions. The chair for this program is Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, a visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. The conveners of the program are Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji, Professor Gumadi Sridevi ji, Dr. Simi Mehta ji, and Dr. Arjun Kumar ji. We are privileged to have an esteemed panel of experts who will be sharing their expertise throughout the program. We have Professor Vibhuti Patel, Dr. Manisha Gupte, Advocate Dr. Almeida, Dr. Amar Jesani, Dr. Kirti Bolini, Advocate D. Mello, Dr. Suneha Kantpal, Dr. Thomas, Muhammad Alt Mash Khanji, Dr. Sangeeta Regi ji, Dr. Anand Bhanji, and Dr. Aparna Joshi ji. Proceeding further, I warmly welcome you all to this transformative learning journey. Before we begin, I would like to state the housekeeping rules for today's session. Join the meeting on time to ensure a smooth learning experience. Q&A sessions will follow each presentation. Please share your queries in the Q&A box only. Avoid posting questions anonymously to ensure meaningful engagement. Keep questions precise and relevant to maximize discussion on time. Refrain from general comments in the Q&A box. To commence today's session, I am honored to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, Chair of the Fellowship, to share her opening remarks on the overview of ending gender-based violence. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Purvi Narayan, for introducing the course. And first of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the IMPRI team for organizing this next cohort, earlier cohort we had last year. And the conveners of the programs, Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Dr. Shalu Nigam, and Professor Gumadi Sridevi. They have really worked hard. Coordinators of this program are Shweta Shankar Padimeri and Reetlas, and moderator Purvi Narayan. I welcome Dr. Manisha Karne, today's keynote speaker, and the esteemed participants. We all know that this is the fifth decade, 50 years of women's rights movement have completed. And earlier, even in the United Nations Status of Women's Committee report, the mention of gender-based violence was not there. Even when Parliament of India discussed in 1974, Status of Women's Committee report, the manifestations of gender-based violence were there. That means declining sex ratio was reported. But what were the reasons for this declining sex ratio was not given. What we saw was that it was right from early 70s only women's groups in different parts of our country had started reporting cases of dowry harassment, and also there were in a local places there used to be demonstrations and all. But academically and in policy discourses, the issue of gender violence became pronounced only in the post-emergency period, because during emergency there were 5,000 women activists who were in Indian prisons. These were the activists who were active in the peasant movement, Dalit movement, working class movement, students organizations like Sampurna Kranti movement in Bihar. Dr. Manisha Gupte is a product of Yuva Vahini. That was associated with Sampurna Kranti movement. I was associated with Nirmindra movement, and we know how the state reacted to women. And person like Dr. Anand Patwardhan, he made a film also on prisoners of conscience, how the prisoners were treated in Indian jails, with a special focus on northeastern countries, northeastern states, where women were the weapon of sexual violence was being used. And it was in 1980 with the judgment by Supreme Court, which was full of misogyny and also a prejudice against the poor tribal woman, girl, Mathura, that created a national level pressure. And women's movement took up this issue of gender-based violence, which resulted in institutional structures for support to survivor of women. A lot of collective wisdom emerged because of the discourses on the strategies, on the tactics, on the methods of protest, the standard operating procedures, the new legal reforms. It snowballed into multifaceted transformative changes in the structures and systems which were perpetuating gender-based violence, and there was a complete complacency of the state when such things happened. The state and society, both of them were totally indifferent. The ideology of victim blaming was very, very seen even in the official discourse. Now also it is very much there. But it is very important to understand the whole history of gender-based violence. And we have in this course all the veterans who have dedicated best years of their lives for fighting against varied forms of gender-based violence. And that's why this thoughtfully curated curriculum that we have come up with, where the participants will explore the complexities of policies and governance frameworks essential for combating gender-based violence. And they're led by the distinguished experts. The course combines interactive sessions, case studies, practical insights, offering a comprehensive approach to understanding multifaceted challenges around gender-based violence, and also critically examine the diverse policy frameworks, assess the government mechanisms, engage in solution-driven discussions to foster safer and more inclusive communities, and creating a support structure for the institutional support structure, community-based support structure, and for making having a paradigm shift where the burden of violence is not on the victim blaming will not be allowed, and the burden of proof in case of all the acts of violence should be on the accused and should be on the perpetrators of violence. So dedicated to creating a world free from gender-based violence, this fellowship underscores our commitment to equipping all the fellows with the expertise necessary to drive impactful change. We know that you fellows are also working professionals in different sectors of the economy and different careers that you are pursuing. So I think it is very important for all of us to understand the criminal justice system, the nuances of public healthcare response to gender-based violence, community initiatives, some of the best practices, child sexual abuse interventions, anti-trafficking strategies, workplace sexual harassment, court battles which are happening in the lower courts, high courts, Supreme Courts in different parts of the world, the functioning of the Lok Adalats, role of men in combating gender-based violence, rural intervention strategies, rights of the sexual minorities, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, and one-stop crisis center, the model which has been evolved for which Dr. Manisha Gupte played a pivotal role for the Dilasa model. And mental health and counseling practices that the approach of AMIC approach, which is a culture-based counseling that you do, and what are the fellows will also have to come up with their own creative expression or a research article, and there'll be publication which will come out in the form of edited anthology. So the most welcome to this course, and over to IMPRI team.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am, for your opening remarks and setting the tone for this crucial program. Now, I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Dr. Manisha Gupte, co-founder and co-founder Mahila Sarvangin Utkarsh Mandal, Pune, who will be speaking on gender-based violence, intersectional and community-centric responses. Over to you, ma'am.
So thank you so much, IMPRI team. Everybody, I'm so happy to be talking to you and this honor that you've given me. So what Professor Vibhuti Patel told me that I have about 45 minutes until 7 o'clock. Is that true? So I have time until then. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to do an overview because this is the opening session, right? So just to have kind of a terrain, kind of marked out, which can come up in very specific ways as the different sessions start unrolling. And I see that you have a very distinguished course content with people who have years and years, decades and decades of experience in what they have done. And I really congratulate Professor Vibhuti Patel for putting all these people together with an equally exciting group of cohort of the IMPRI fellows. So I'm going to start off, in these 45 minutes, I'm going to take about some 8 or 10 different issues. So I might, kind of go for about 3 or 4 minutes on a particular issue or maybe longer on a particular one. So my first question is, what is violence? Yeah, how do we recognize violence? How do we call it different from, say, an accident? If I threw something, somebody came, in the way by mistake, or I missed throwing a particular object to somebody, then that's an accident, right? But if I threw something with the intention of hitting somebody and it did not even hit that person, it is still violence. So intention is extremely important in violence, and that intention, so what's the intention of violence? The intention of violence is to preserve status quo. So one woman raped at 12 o'clock at night, or you've heard about my city, about this 5:45, the rape that happened in just outside a big bus depot, just 100 feet away from the police station. You do that one thing, and then suddenly, as though that whole place is haunted, people say, don't go to that area. Or a lot of girls' education gets stopped, and we know that once education gets stopped, marriage is the immediate response, because that is considered the panacea of all problems within patriarchy, and we know that only compounds problems; it does not resolve the problems. So teaching somebody a lesson, औकात, अपनी हैसियत सिखाना, is what violence is about. And if somebody tries to come up, tries to ask questions, talks about rights, talks about equality, then those become very threatening to structures that are oppressive and exploitative. And we know that our entire society is based on discrimination, and then makes it much easier for any violence to be perpetrated. Now, who can perpetrate violence on whom is the third question. Now, I'll just take a little detour that feminism, of which Professor Vibhuti Patel, her partner, Dr. Amar Jesani, my partner, Dr. Ramesh Awasthi, I and so many other people who have been part of these movements, rights movements, minority rights movements since the 70s. So feminism, what did that give us? It gave us a few magic tools. What was the first magic tool? It gave us a magnifying glass. And that magnifying glass taught us to identify power and control. Power and control, power between individuals, power between institutions and individuals, and power from the state to institutions and individuals. Because earlier studies say about families. So anthropology has given tremendous importance and has taught us tremendously about families. Feminism asked the question, why was the family like that? Yeah, feminism asked the question, why? So when the moment you ask the question why, you start seeing things very differently. You don't agree with everything that you see, or you question and you say, but it could have been something else. So why did this happen all the time? The other, empowering slogan that feminism gave us, and which is very connected to understanding power, is the personal is the political. And what is politics? Politics is relationships of power, right? So I might be beaten because I did not get dowry, but my neighbor gets beaten in spite of dowry. I might be beaten because, I'm dark skinned, but my neighbor is very fair skinned. I might have, I didn't have sons, but my neighbor has 3 sons. Yeah, I talk back to my husband, but my neighbor is extremely weak. Yeah, she doesn't never talk. She's very meek, she is all suffering. All of us get beaten. Husband consumes alcohol. How does he recognize that it's his wife? How does he not beat I work in a rural community. How does he not beat the sarpanch on the way home? Yeah. If a husband is, physically strong, how does he not beat the boss who is half his weight? Yeah. So we have to understand that it's not about anger. It's not about who commits a mistake. It's not about I put less salt in the food or more salt in the food, or if a man has an affair outside marriage, is the woman who bears the consequences. The woman has an affair outside marriage, again, is the woman who bears the consequences. Now, when we start seeing these similarities, that is what feminism taught us, that the personal is the political. There is nothing that is completely personal. It is all political, meaning that it is all laden with the situations of power. And that is what the feminist movement really gave us. And because all of us, most of us at that time, movements have been there in the right wing as well. I'm talking of the progressive autonomous women's movement. Most of us were part of already groups, as Professor Vibhuti Patel talked in her introduction. We were all part of it, either part of trade unions or landless workers' rights or rural people's rights, all kinds of rights movements, human rights movements. Why did we need the feminist movement? It's because we wanted to see deeper structures as they affect each other, and we attach the tool of patriarchy to understand that. Now, because we came from these organizations that were progressive, that were talking of social change, they're talking of caste issues, they're talking of class issues, they were talking of many kinds of inequalities. Now, that's why we were much more easily able to identify state violence, class violence. If you see the issues that we took up in the first few years, what were they? Now we don't name rape survivors anymore, but these names are already known to everybody. That's why I'm using the name. It's a tribal girl called Mathura who gets raped in a police outpost. Maya Tyagi, who is in Uttar Pradesh, who is, they harass her, a few people harass her. They're in a car, the family, the men oppose that. Now these people who harassed were actually plainclothes policemen. They come back, they shoot all the men. Just try to imagine that situation. The men are pulled out, they are killed. You have the blood on you. You don't know whether somebody is dead or alive, whether they need your help. And then Maya Tyagi was paraded naked to the police station and raped there. Ramiza B in Hyderabad, whose husband was a cart puller, she was raped and the husband was killed. Then Manjushri Sarda, who was middle class in that sense, one would say a Savarna Hindu, but she was killed for dowry. So we could understand that state violence, family violence, these are different structures that actually oppress women. And these are the issues that we took up. And I'm going to, somewhere towards the end of my conversation, I'm going to try and bring some of these issues back. So we can ask the question after that then, who cannot speak out? Why can't certain people speak out? Why do the courts ask women, why didn't you talk about rape for the past 15 days or for 1 month? Police ask women, why didn't you come with domestic violence when it started happening? So why didn't you do it earlier? Why didn't you do it? Why couldn't she speak? Why couldn't somebody who's suffering violence, who likes to suffer violence, right? Would you or I like to suffer violence? Why can't they speak out? Because they know they have nowhere to go. They know they don't have the vocabulary. They know that nobody's going to take them seriously. They know that somebody else has more money, has more power. As a community worker myself, as a rural community person, I know how much, in spite of families not getting woman is killed by the family, the entire subcaste or caste comes up with hundreds and thousands of rupees. Of course, it has all to be repaid with the interest later on. And literally everybody along the way is bribed to see that, the family honor, the caste honor is not lost, because, if somebody wins a case about killing their daughter or killing their wife or killing their sister, then that will become a deterrent for other families, to not, perpetuate this kind of violence. So you find these very unusual alliances who are otherwise, fighting because this, so this is constantly happening, my land, your house, my house, etc. But on these issues of women's, not disempowerment or women's oppression, everybody comes together. And before I forget, I want to tell you that today, in the era of violent identity politics or caste, we see it all over the world. We see it in our country. One thing that the fundamentalists of all religions, however much they might say they're against each other, what do they have in common? They're all anti-democracy, they're all anti-equality, and they're all anti-women. These are some things that we have to remember. These are their common. They're anti-human rights activists, etc. So women's rights are contentious for anybody, irrespective of which religion or they come, as long as they are conservative. This is what happens. Now, violence can be overt. You can see it, and that can be in the form, just now what Purvi ji talked about. It can be physical, it can be psychological, it can be emotional, it can be financial, it can be sexual. And often, friends, these kinds of violence don't exist in isolation. They're all connected to each other. Yeah. So the financial violence will result in sexual violence in silencing me to talk about physical violence. Physical violence, intimidates me, does not allow me to express when I have psychological problems, or the violence itself could be emotional, what we call gaslighting. Oh, this is not true. Your worldview is not true. What you, thought was not true. So constantly making me feel as though, actually there is no violence in my life. And actually what is happening to me is my fault. So this is the way that, kind of gaslighting happens. So this is overt violence. Now there can be covert violence, right? Now, suppose when women come to our shibirs, not to our study circles, or, can I go? She has to start doing the setting for many days. Yeah, cook in advance, all my young friends here would understand. That's what you have to do to your parents if you have to go to a picnic, right? Or if you want a night out, you have to start all the work. You have to start earlier, pleasing everybody, etc. I ask the husband, can I go for this trip? Jana hai to jao. Yeah? Now, what does that mean? It means don't go. But if you ask the man, what does he say? Maine kaha jana hai to jao. You change the tone and everything changes, right? So the violence of the eyes, the violence of what is not spoken inside the house, the violence of the, everything that happens that we do not recognize as violence, but the court kind of control. And here's again the feminist lens of power and control really helps us to understand. And then, of course, third, what Johann Galtung in his piece essays wrote in the 60s and 70s, structural violence, the violence of structures, the structures of patriarchy, women having to change their name at marriage, having to change their gotra at marriage, having to change their caste and religion at marriage, having to give up their home, and then come to a home that belongs not only to the husband, but to his entire clan. The children that come out of your body are recognized as the children of that particular clan. The woman is on the man's name, property is on the man's name, all kinds of movable and immovable, resources are on the man's name. And not only that, remember in patriarchy, they don't only belong to men, but they are passed on from father to son. So there's a specific way in which all these are passed. And that is patriarchy, an undivided, undisturbed line of men that women have to produce through their uteri after getting married. You cannot do it before marriage. You cannot have children before marriage, and you cannot not have children once you get married. Yeah. So marriage really, which is a social construct, it's not a biological construct. My body will get pregnant if all the situations are, in a favor of me getting pregnant or working against me to get pregnant, right? But all of this is, we just assume she's not married, can't have children, has children, has to be married. So see how we accept this structural violence. And I think that this violence of the structures is really something that from which gender-based violence emanates. So I just wanted to put this whole setting here. Now let's go to, say gender itself is a social construct, isn't it? Gender is written on a body. Gender is not written on a whiteboard. It's written on my body. But my body in what context? My body in a particular historical context, my body in a particular social political context, right? My body in a cis heteronormative context, my body in racializing, calling certain people and putting kind of hierarchies of race, hierarchies of, or multiple kinds of hierarchies. So gender itself is a social construct. And therefore, all the work that we have to do has to be understood from an intersectional. All women are not homogeneous, all men are not homogeneous. Most of the violence that men suffer is actually from other men. It's men who are more powerful than them. It's men who are on a different caste hierarchy. The violence that women perpetuate on men is minuscule, which does not make that violence right. Remember, it does not make it right. I'm just trying to tell you that when violence happens on women, it is also largely through men. And what happens on men, or what happens on intersex people, or what happens on trans people is also largely through men. Are we against men? Absolutely not. How can we be against men? They all come out of the same place, our uterus, isn't it? It's the way that men are raised to become assertive, to become violent, to take charge of resources, and the way that women are raised to give up resources, to become submissive, to not shout. So how do I shout when somebody chases me down? I'm taught not to run. How do I run? I'm in these wearing these little silly sandals, wearing clothes that I'll trip on. Wearing a chunni at night, which can be used as a garrote, to strangle me. All kinds of clothes that are against movement, against any kind of fluidity. And then suddenly on the day that you suffer violence, you're supposed to stand up and say, this is the violence in my life. It's just not possible. So therefore, we have to understand gender as it changes, and we have to understand that in certain situations when bahut barakat hoti hai, plenty of jobs, everything is fine, then the whole narrative is about, oh, women come out, why are you sitting at home? Come out, join, build the nation. But the moment, like we see now, like we see increasing gaps between the rich and the poor. Do you know that COVID created trillionaires on one side and I work in the village and I have seen distress migration. I have seen violence. I've seen migration because of indebtedness. I've seen violence because of caste violence. And people vanish within like a day. And, they come on the pavements. The people you see on the pavement, they've come there because of some kind of situation. The push factor was more than the pull factor of bringing them to the city. But in COVID, I have seen reverse migration like never before. Homes that are just meant for 3 or 4 people were housing 15, 20, 25 people. People were sleeping under the bed, on top of the bed. Women were filling water for 40 people. Can you imagine in lockdown? So everything has a gender impact. And we cannot separate gender from caste, class, or cis heteronormativity. Now, we cannot just talk about violence, right? We have to do something about it. And I remember that, in the debates of the early 80s, there were in Delhi, Bombay, there were debates of whether we should start counseling centers or whether, we should be out on the streets. So with out on the streets, people were saying, well, what happens to somebody who comes to me facing violence today? If we are inside, then what happens outside? But remember one thing, in the 80s, we never did either or. Yeah, we were there looking after women in our entire small homes, survivors of violence or people who had to leave their home because of their politics. People have lived for months together. Now, I'm not talking of days and weeks. People have lived for months together in our homes. Yeah. And so therefore, there was never an either or. I do this and I don't know. We were there for Dalit Panther meetings. We were there for the Namantar, changing the name of Marathwada University to Baba Saheb. We were part of the Long March. I was part of the Long March, that went on the 6th of December, 1979 to Aurangabad. So it wasn't your work and my work at that time. Everybody was there. This was easier in big cities because all you had to do was take a train and go somewhere, right? So that was easier. So the need for immediate intervention, and I want to say again, I want to congratulate Dr. Vibhuti Patel for, being one of the pioneers of both of, the autonomous women's movement, but also of counseling work. The Women's Center probably was the first, intervention center that was started through a fundraiser. Smita Patil's Gumbartha was shown, and that kind of, put up the Women's Center. So people need immediate response. They need legal response. They need counseling response. They need medical response. Yeah, they need support. They need validation. They need safety planning. That has to be done on a daily basis. And this never ends. We can have the same webinar 50 years from now, and we'll be talking more or less with different examples, but talking basically the same issues. So one is immediate intervention. Then one is midterm intervention, right? So Masoom, which Ramesh will be talking about the community interventions, support groups at the village level who go to the door. If there is of suicide or there's a risk of homicide, get the woman outside the home, keep her in their house for a few days, so that she's not completely she's not sleep deprived. She can decide which children to take with her, which children to leave behind. Because women, if they leave even one child, oh my goodness, I'm not a good mother. That's not true. Let the family look after the children who you can get back in court. Take the children who need you, who maybe somebody might be ill. Let the family and the husband look after some children, for some time. Why do we have burden to, in the tsunami, because women waited for the mother-in-law, for the children, for the cow, for the vessels in the house. More women died in the tsunami than men, in spite of the fact that more men were at sea during the tsunami. Yeah. So this is the way that women's lives are tied to something that you cannot, you're taught that you're a bad mother if you have an abortion. You're taught, you're a bad woman, if you, everything from good to bad is very easy. From good to bad is very difficult. From bad to good, you can try all your life, but you are never going to come back to being good. And this good is just symbolic capital. It can be taken away from you at any time. So therefore, this was required, and the midterm interventions that we require, that as I told you about the Aadhaar guards, or we require preventive work. What's preventive work? To challenge structures, right? What are the hallmarks of patriarchy? The hallmarks of patriarchy are control over production, reduction both of labor. You cannot wash vessels for the whole month. You can't make beds for the whole month. You can't cook for the whole month. And so therefore you have to do every day. You have to keep repeating that labor. So the reproduction of labor, and also biological reproduction. When to have children, what kind of children to have, how many children to have. So the family, the state, the market, the community, everybody monitors, children. The state says no more than 2. Now they're talking of 3 or 4 because they require your sons to die in riots and to go to war. They want cannon fodder. So these are the ways in which a woman's uterus gets manipulated. China, directly from one child, I say now 3 children. I mean, now the girls in China don't even want to get married. Can you imagine? And now you're saying 3 children. So what kind of logic? People are not numbers. People are people, friends. That is what you have to remember. So therefore, Dushyant Kumar, who was, a poet of the political group that I belong to, he has a beautiful, ghazal, ho gayi hai peer parvat si pighalni chahiye. But there is one couplet in that which he says, because of our interventions, he says, aaj ye diwar pardon ki tarah hilne lagi. Yeah, it's fluttering in, it's walls are fluttering, as though they are, curtains in the breeze. So, आज ये दीवार पर्दों की तरह हिलने लगी, शर्त लेकिन थी कि ये बुनियाद हिलनी चाहिए. Yeah? What had we promised to ourselves when we became part of these progressive movements, that we would change structures? And I think that the latter part of, the 20 minutes that I have, I'm going to talk about, the challenging of the structures and to kind of go around those. If we do not keep intersectionality in mind, then a lot of our work inadvertently can have undesirable or unexpected consequences. Yeah. So let's see which are the men that get punished today. Which are the rapes that become high-profile rapes? Usually it is, in quotes, the upper man raping a poor woman that then comes for conversation. It is the lower man molesting the upper woman that comes into conversation. Now, is it okay for a lower man? I'm using lower and upper in quotes, yeah. Is it okay for a lower man to molest or rape an upper woman? Absolutely not. Never justified. Not at all justified. But look at what happens on the 75th anniversary of our independence. The rapists and killers of Bilkis Banu and her entire family was not just rape. They raped another 6 women, killed all of them. And Bilkis Banu's little child of 3 years old, the head was smashed on a rock. So it was 7 murders and it was a rape, and they thought she was dead and they left, but she was alive to tell the tale. And they get released, and not only that, there are women outside and men outside who are doing arti for the men who are coming out. This is what scares. friends. Yeah, it's the whole politics of us and them. Is it our women? Is it our men? Is it their men? Is it their women? We cannot. Let's remember that a rapist can never be ours and a survivor of violence can never be theirs. We are always on the side of the survivor. Never can we be on the side of the one who is violent or who rapes. So therefore, if we are not very conscious, yeah, then what we do can be misrepresented to actually punish those who are already punished. And that's why we require an understanding of structures, and that's why we require an understanding of intersectionality. Now, what are the challenges? Yeah, old and new, right? Old forms of violence have not disappeared, but new forms of violence are coming. Social media. No, now you think that, I have this phone in my hand. No, the phone has you in their hand. Yeah. Instagram, somebody comes into your room, the person is actually talking, could be a completely false profile. I'm finding this more and more in the community in which I'm working. People with false profiles coming in and girls, made to elope, boys circling schools, older boys circling schools. This is an eighth grade girl, ninth grade girl, whose hormones are raging at that time, whose sexuality is just budding, who is an older man who will pay for, to have, maybe even just a tea or a coffee or a cold drink somewhere, who has a motorbike, may not be his motorbike, but, you have that. And this is the way that, you find intergenerational, accessing girls who are much younger than you. Now, the answers are not to take away the mobile phone from the girl, right? That is what patriarchy does. It takes away my freedom of mobility, it takes away my decision making, it takes away property from me, it takes inheritance from me. We are not going to join the queue of those who are creating power and control structures. But how do we help our children to navigate this new jungle? Yeah, from these, the wild beasts that exist in this jungle. And how do we do that? So there's so many different new issues of honor. When, there were interreligious marriages or intercaste marriages, most of us have had intercaste or interreligious marriages. Never was it called love jihad. Yeah, or never was it called, kind of, whatever, saffron baiting or whatever. We never heard of names like that. It was just the fact that somebody got married interreligious or got married intercaste. We knew they had trouble. We knew that it wasn't very easy, and friends supported those structures. But now it's so much more difficult to do things that we did so much more easily in the 70s and 80s. It was much easier because, we were not hounded, we were not, killed. So even against the killing now, which are the boys that kill? You might have seen Sairat, you might have seen, so many other films. So it's the girl's family, when it's a so-called, in quotes, upper family that kills the so-called, in quotes, lower man. Yeah, very rarely will you find if a girl, if it is, the where the, because what is written in the Manuvadi marriages, that a woman always goes up. She gets economic, security. And what does she give away? Because of that economic security, she gives away the right to divorce. She gives the right to remarry. And she gives up her right to leave the husband's house. So this is what she trades in term, in lieu of getting, economic support from the family. So this is what you see. So anytime you see violence, apply power, apply control. Who can violate whom? Who can discriminate against whom? Yeah? And who goes unpunished? Who has impunity when they, perpetuate violence? Unless we apply these structures, oh, there was violence here, there was violence here. That's fine. We have to always resist violence, but you may never know what is happening. Now let's come down to, the new kinds of backlash language that we are using. Just in the past 2 days, and this, very unfortunate, episode of the men who committed suicide and named their partners, their female partners, as it's terrible, terrible. I cannot imagine why somebody wants to commit suicide. I mean, can you imagine how unbearable life must be that you embrace death? So any suicide, any violence, any kind of discrimination must break our heart, must bring tears to our eyes, must, bring, whether it is a man, whether it's a woman, whether, it's cis, or whether it's, LGBTIQ, whether it's intersex, whether it's, whether it is a trans person. Violence against anybody, just because of who they are, who are not even going out and harming anyone else, has to be recognized, has to be grieved. And we have to try to put that straight. look at the narrative that's coming up, friends. The narrative that is coming up is that men are bigger victims of patriarchy. That is something that is not acceptable. Yeah, I can understand what's happened to the person, and I stand by, the person's family who lost, and I'm against the person who maybe actually drove him to that particular situation. You have to also understand the stress in IT, right? They give you 3 or 4 times the salary. They make you work, 8 or 10 people. What do you think the gym in that, the IT sectors? What do you think that, what do you think the pool is there? Just don't leave. Just work 72 hours, work 90 hours. Don't stare at your spouse, over weekends. I mean, that's the kind of, how did International Women's Day come? It came for asking for fewer hours. For, the wages. That's how we got International Women's Day. It was strikes in Europe. There were strikes in America, in the United States. And that's where Clara Zetkin and, Alessandra Kollontai, went to Lenin and, talked about this. And that is how it was actually International Working Women's Day that came. And today now we have been told to, work, 1.5 times, work 2 times, and going back, no, any Friday can be your pink slip Friday. There's no union because you're all on contract. Hardly reservations for, social discrimination like caste, because privatization. Where is a caste-based reservation? Where are any reservations at the moment you privatize? So in all this structure, these are all backlashes, right? These are all backlashes to rights. These are all backlashes to the movements that we put up. So therefore, saying that men are equal victims of patriarchy is like saying Brahmins are equal, victims of the caste system that Dalits are. Right? I mean, it's as ridiculous as that. One gets advantages and the advantages are taken away. So unless men are ready to give up entitlements of their daughters bearing their name, of wives bearing their names, of having the property in their names, of children being in their names, all the privileges that patriarchy gives, if men are ready to give up those, then we can start talking of equality. As long as those inequalities remain, we will talk of power and control. There is no other paradigm, there is no other narrative that we can use except power and control. So the last point that, in the about 11, 12 minutes that I have. So, what is the way ahead? Okay, I just when I looked at my notes. So have we started speaking about rape? Yes. Since when did we start speaking? The women's movement. Rape was never used. Always it was violation of modesty, outrage of modesty, bura kam kiya, izzat luti. Yeah. How does the woman lose izzat if she is raped, right? She has lost access to human rights. It's the man who lost his izzat because, he gave up his humanness and, he raped, isn't it? But the whole thing, a rapist might come out of prison, but, the rape survivor always has rape survivor written, in tattooed or, on her forehead all her life. Right? Now we have started speaking about rape, but which rape are we talking about? We're talking largely of stranger danger, which is not more than 15 to 20% of all rapes. We're talking of rapes outside the house, but we know that 85% of rapes, violence, killings happen inside the house by people who are related to you, sometimes father, stepfather, grandfather, uncle, cousin, neighbor, somebody who's looking after your family financially. These rapes are still not talked about, and it's a shame that our Indian Penal Code still does not recognize marital rape as rape. Yeah, can you imagine? It sets different ages for when you can have sex with a person. If you're not married, it's a different age for girls, 18, whereas for, if you're married, the husband can have sex with you when you're 60. Is my body different just because I get married? Yeah. So just look at how misogynist and how pro patriarchal family, the laws also can be. And therefore, as feminists, even though all of us have participated in policy making or in law making, we've always been uneasy with the law because we know that the law, again, does not operate outside the socio-economic structures. The law interprets law. The courts interpret law. You don't necessarily get justice in the courts. Yeah. Justice is something much more than that, and social justice is even much more than that. So now what's the way ahead? I would say that the first way ahead is to challenge the artificial divide between the public and the private domains, because there really is nothing like that. When I go to feed the chickens in the courtyard, am I in the public domain or the private domain? When I go to fill water at the well, is it public domain or private domain? When I go to work the fields of my husband, not mine, my husband's field, when I go to work on his fields, am I on the way in the public domain or the private domain? I'm a health worker. I enter your house to, immunize your child. What is your private domain is my public domain. It's my workplace, right? So there is really nothing like the private. But this Delhi is the threshold, the Umberta, yeah, makes all the difference in women's life. What the Constitution, equality that gives you all the rights that our Indian Constitution gives us, human rights, are afraid to come inside. The moment you step inside the house, you are the owner, you are owned by the family there. And what happens inside the house cannot go outside the house. Yeah. So this Delhi's that actually marks the artificial barrier between the, the public and the private. Don't stand on the threshold. How many of your grandmothers have told you that? Don't stand on the threshold. Yeah. So because standing on the threshold is so risky because you don't know. In Maharashtra earlier, if your Mangal Sutra broke, you could not cross the threshold with a broken Mangal Sutra. Yeah, because somebody outside must know whether you belong to somebody or you are a public woman. Yeah, so that is how, that is how much the threshold. So that is something that we have to completely challenge. Why? Because Sylvia Walby tells us that public and private patriarchies work hand in hand to disenfranchise women in all spheres. And now here with women, we are adding trans people, we're adding children, we're adding young male children, we're adding everybody who is a survivor within or a victim of patriarchy. So that's the first way ahead. Challenge these structures. Second, all structures are related to each other. That is something that we have to understand. And so therefore, our work has to challenge all structures together. Jyotirao Phule said, women are Shudras, the Shudras among the Shudras, right? What did Baba Saheb Ambedkar tell us? He told us that women are the gateway to the caste system. My vagina, yeah, is the gateway to the caste system because from there is where the seed goes inside. And that's the reason my sexuality is controlled, because whose seed can enter my uterus, really becomes the, the hallmark of caste. And Baba Saheb also told us that we cannot fight either patriarchy or caste system together. And that's why on the 25th of December, what he did was he burned the Manusmriti. Not that Manusmriti ever existed as a law for thousands of years in our country, but in that particular document, he saw the connection of caste and patriarchy acting together. And that was a symbolic gesture that Baba Saheb did. So all structures are related to each other. In the 70s and 80s, as I talked about Dalit Panthers, I talked about trade unions. That's why we were lifted. It's like, the plane that flies, that huge, monster that flies in the sky. And I still am a child when I look at a plane and say, how can that thing fly? It's not supposed to fly. Yeah. But it's the hot air. It's the air that lifts it. So we were lifted by other progressive movements in the 70s. And as movements break, as trade unions disappear, because, people are not allowed to unionize. And in the kind of fascism that is rising throughout the world, cultural nationalism, religious nationalism, violent identity politics, we find that, all movements are at a risk of breaking. So good movements and terrible movements are all connected to each other. So we have to challenge that. The third is that we have to learn and learn. Learning is difficult, is almost impossible. The prejudices that we are taught, the biases that we are taught about other people. Where do we learn? Where do we learn biases? Where do we learn othering? We learn it in the patriarchal family. Where do we learn totalitarianism? We learn it in the family. The father is final. Nothing can change. This girl is dead to us because she married outside the caste. So in these structures, we have to understand that, we have to be critical of the patriarchal family. Families out of love. Many of us build relationships in spite of patriarchy. Yeah, it's not because of patriarchy. We have, struggled, we have had ups and downs because of patriarchy, because of these structures. And some of us, good people, good partners, or, whatever, have managed to still make something out of this. So therefore, we have to learn and unlearn. And the last is that we have to understand agency of people. Because if we do not recognize the agency of people, we become part of the problem, not part of the solution. Yeah? And while, as I told you, I said tight at the end, the issues that we took up were not as, as completely, unrepresentative of, say like Black women's rights when white women's movement came up. No, the issues that we took up were mostly all of them were from extreme whether it was Mathur, whether it was Ramizabi, whether it was anyone else. So those were the issues that we took up. But now is the question who will lead the movement here. Yeah? And the ones that are excluded, the ones that have the lived realities, the ones, that, know what it is to deal. So you ask a man, what does your wife like or doesn't like? I don't know. But the woman knows what he likes or what he does not like. That's called, the dual vision, right? It's the lower seeing the upper. Because, unless you see the upper, you cannot know how to deal with the structures, because you'll be dead if you didn't know the structures, right? So, but the agency has to be recognized, because you see the person has survived poverty, the person has survived caste, the person has survived cis heteronormativity, the person has survived patriarchy. Obviously, that person is more intelligent than I am, right? Obviously. I mean, what is the question? And so therefore, what do I learn from that person? I think, the people are excluded, the subordinated are not just to be given a voice, because who am I to give anyone a voice? We have no tokenism, but the people have to lead the movement, and we have to sit in the audience, and we have to learn and unlearn. So am I pessimistic? Absolutely not. Yeah. Do I believe the world is going to be a better place? Maybe not in my lifetime, but there is no personal yardstick. Leon Trotsky told us there is no personal yardstick in history, right? The yardstick is of entire history, right? So therefore, it will happen. Sab Damankari jo hai, all of them at some point, have been overthrown. And if we work to challenge patriarchy, caste, and all systems together, then we are multitasking, and the generations, ahead of us are much, much more adept at multitasking, and, have much better reach than many of us had. Getting 500 people together, now, you can, go to millions of people, thousands of people together. So there is great hope that systems and structures will be changed. Revolutions do not happen 9 to 5. They do not happen with funding. They don't happen with funding. They don't happen through NGOs. They happen on the street. They happen, by standing by people's rights. And they happen because we want to see a different world. So thank you very much. Zindabad.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was so nice to hear you out and all the expertise that you have shared with us. It was indeed an enriching and thought-provoking address. I now request our chair, Vibhuti Mamji, to kindly share her remarks on the session. In the meanwhile, participants are also encouraged to share their questions in the Q&A box or use raise hand feature for discussion. Participants are also requested to kindly accept the request to join as panelists and be as engaging as you can. Please ask your questions and please share your experiences, which will allow you to, enable your audio and the video. So use the feature. All right. So yeah, please go ahead. Yes, ma'am, over to you.
Vibhuti, unmute kijiye.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Manisha Gupte, for such a erudite and also very theoretically robust, analytically powerful and lecture, and also keynote address also covered the grounded understanding of the problem. You also debunked existing myths with very suitable and the most powerful examples. You also deconstructed the concept of patriarchy with intersectional lens. And now I would like to ask you that in what way you have worked for creating systems and structure which are more empathetic and which also provide transformative change, especially the work on the meeting on that in the area of public health and the gatherings that you have at a state level and national level and some of the international initiatives that you have taken.
So collectivizing women, each person may not have the power, but, when there are lots of people, safety in numbers, right? When we cross the road, we try to see another 4 people and then we try to cross the road with them. It's simple as that. It's a survival. Yeah. And so therefore getting women together, and then therefore within your organization, which are the people that, come in, who has the power, who are your staff? So your staff have to come from the groups that you are talking in terms of empowering, right? So if you have a savings and credit program and the police party for the sarpanch's wife is giving out the money to somebody, how do people recognize it as different from the 150% interest loans that they're anyway giving to the community? Yeah. So the people who give the money have to be from marginalized sections. Yeah? When white discharge is, when balutedar, we have the Jajmani system. It's dying out, but we have all the 12 balutedars in our area of work. The carpenters, the blacksmiths, etc., the goldsmiths, everybody. The Muslims are also a part of the balutedari system. So it's more barter in kind. So when a balutedar woman or a Dalit woman or an NT-DNT woman is trained to become a health worker, and when she identifies white discharge in a rich woman, even for that one moment when the rich woman cries and talks to her about not having control over her body or her sexuality, yeah, there is a different kind of power break that happens there. Or when your counselors, are themselves survivors of violence, and they also come from marginalized communities, or they come from Pardhis, or they come from Fase Pardhi, or they come from Ramoshi communities who are always arrested when there is any theft in the neighborhood. And why are they called criminalized or notified or denotified tribes? Because they were the ones who rose in armed rebellion against the British. So, all the Ramoshis, Umaji Naik, led a revolt, and that's where Ramoshis then become. It's like the Muslims today, right? They are terrorists unless, they prove otherwise. So Ramoshi is a thief or a Pardi is a thief unless proved otherwise. So you don't give jobs, you completely economically marginalize somebody. And then what does the person do? Your prophecy comes true. So basically it is collectivization. Basically it is being very cognizant of structure. So I remember one, where there was a nursery, plants, and they came and it required water. And of course the rich farmers wanted to put up the nursery, which they would give to the government. We said, no, because who then is going to have the green land? Who is going to have, the advantages of the trees? Is going to be the rich. What about right to water? What about the right to water of the poorest? So therefore, any act that you do, it might be the smallest. It might be just counseling a woman who is sitting in front of you, how to avoid being beaten tonight, or how to scream when she's being beaten. But the understanding has to be of the entire structure. So then, therefore, then we don't say that, get the girl married to her rapist at one end, or then to say that, if you had, if you're breaking up and the boy says no to marriage, then you can slap a charge of rape on him. No, feminism is not about pleasing women. Feminism is about challenging patriarchy. Yeah, it is, lose your virginity. What did we lose? What did one lose? One gained experience. It might be actually painful or whatever, but painful, I don't mean physically. I mean, later on you break up. But how can you charge somebody with rape if it had been consensual for years together? And then therefore what gives the boy the right to throw acid on a girl's face because she wants to move out? So collectivizing women so that entry into any relationship is safe, staying inside is safe, and leaving the relationship is also safe. Yeah? So getting young girls together to challenge early marriage, our children's groups. Yeah, my brother is going to get married. My sister, these are the children going house to house and talking to people and saying, please don't get your children, don't get Didi married, or don't get, Bhaiya married. Or going in schools and, talking about, why are the girls made to fill water? Why are the Dalit children made to sweep the latrines? And, why are the, the Savarnas, the Marathas especially doing gentle sweeping of the courtyard? So all these questions have to be asked. Challenging teachers when sexual harassment happens inside that, making these into public issues. This is not something that, we as city-based people did. These are all the things that our colleagues in the villages did. And sometimes I would be so scared. And they would say, who are you to put a limit on empowerment? Aise bhi maar khaya, aise bhi maar khayenge. Yeah, but today it will be because I challenge the structure. And I think this is really, really, really important, that people recognize human rights. They've always recognized violations, but they did not know what their human rights were. And the Constitution and the human rights framework gives us words. It gives us, a way to frame what we have to say. And I think that this kind of community response of getting people. So what was the gaze in the village? It was always the upper man gazing at the lower woman, right? Isn't it? Sexually, financially, politically, gazing at the upper man as well. Now you reverse the gaze. When Balutedar and Dalit women stand and ask in the Gram Sabha, and they ask the Sarpanch and says, what happened to the money? Why is the money not being utilized? Where is this corruption? The gaze is reversed. It is the Dalit women questioning the upper men. And I think, that this is, one can give examples of different ways in which people have tackled. What I think is not really the examples. What I think is the internal change that happens inside, where you say that, I am here to challenge structures. And I think that is what been, Masoom's and Ramesh, will talk about Masoom's work much more. So I think the community interventions really have to understand structures at community, local, state, national, and international levels, because once you peel off the specificities, you find the same dirty stuff inside, right? So I think those are, what we have to do, collectivize, and challenge the structures. Don't take what we say is the pledges that we take is, I will not perpetuate violence, I will not bear violence, and I will not be a bystander when I see violence or any kind.
Very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us such a brief answer and elaborating everything in detail. I guess we have some questions in the Q&A box. I would appreciate that if the attendees could ask the questions by themselves, and it would be really glad to, hear them out. So can we have Bhakti Gaikwad ji, if she can question her, like whatever she wants to ask to the panelist. Bhakti ji, are you here with us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for giving this insightful talk, ma'am. You really covered all the things nicely. Just had a question regarding online violence, which you mentioned in your talk. How do we navigate this, issue of online violence if we come across, first time? How do we do that?
I'm not an online person, so I really don't have a specific answer, because I'm not on social media, not for any purpose, but just because I cannot deal with social media. See, violence is violence, okay? It can be online, it can be in person, it can be, it can be in any form. So do not expose vulnerabilities, even to your boyfriend, yeah? However much at a particular age, you want, maybe it's a boyfriend, you want a girlfriend, it can be same sex, it can be whatever. Do not expose your vulnerabilities. Again, I have only rural experience, okay? I have no urban experience whatsoever for the past 40 years. We have found new forms, that a boy buying a phone for a girl just so that she can speak to him. Yeah? And I can't sleep tonight unless you send me a photo, that is maybe, topless photo or a nude photo, or telling her to do a sexual activity with her own body and, post that. Then that is used to get her to agree to meeting and to have a sexual relation. And that again is recorded. And many times, it is, again, then it becomes him, then it becomes other friends. The second is, I care for you so much, and I want you to be on GPS live. As though before this meeting, this girl had never left home. Yeah. And I'm so concerned about you. And at that age, however, it's very difficult to recognize love and possessiveness as two separate things. Yeah, or jealousy and liking things. So everybody enjoys this, about this complete undivided attention. He really likes me in these colored clothes. Everybody doesn't like me to do that. And this is all happening at the age of what? Now I'm seeing this at the age of 14 or 15 or 16 in our communities. And then the violence. Why were on that GPS lab? Why were you at this particular corner for so long? Why didn't you pick up my phone? And so much violence, just Vibhuti, and Bhakti, and other friends. Just like 2-3 months ago, Masoom has initiated a group called the Rationalist Youth Organization, Viveki Yuva Manch in Purandar Taluka. And some of the members of our Viveki Yuva Manch were in the college, and they intervened. This boy started kicking the girl. He was holding her hair in college, in the parking lot. Yeah, and he was kicking her, and they tried to intervene. And what do you expect? The girl says, leave us alone. Yeah? Later on, after she was beaten black and blue, the girls came up, picked her up and took her and said, but why are you accepting? She's saying, oh, because he'll leave me. Now imagine if this is the kind of violence, that girls are made to accept with so many more choices than their parents had, than their grandmothers had. What is marriage going to be like? Can you imagine what marriage is going to be like? And the pressures on boys. Yeah, I was doing a training with young boys, and I said, why does meeting start immediately with physical activity? He says, but everything else has happened online, right? We've said, I love you. We've done everything online. So then why do you meet? You meet for physical. Now, in our communities, we anywhere that's the moral panic that's created. So to push our kids, we put them in lodges. We push them in 10 by 10 rooms, of which 90% of the room is dominated by a bed. Yeah, what is going to happen in that room if we are going to send our children to those rooms, right? And then the boy says, if I'm sitting with a girl, I have to, put my phone on silent, because every 1 minute my friends are asking, chance liya kya? Chance mara kya? Ye kiya kya? Wo kiya kya? That's the kind of pressure that is coming because, everything is happening too early. So I don't have an answer for you, Bhakti directly. What I want to say is that, violence is not just somebody in your face beating you. The online violence and the in-person violence are related to each other. And therefore, violence has to be challenged in all spheres so that it is challenged in a particular sphere. And it should happen without taking away the rights of girls to mobile phones, because in COVID, we saw how many girls could not complete their education because that one mobile phone in the house belonged to the men of the household. She never had the phone for the math class or for a science class. And then, marriages, it's so much easier, and you can have a marriage within just less than 50 people, less expensive marriage. And we saw, hundreds of girls being married off. Of course, our team was going to prevent many of the marriages, but now different kinds of early marriages are taking place. They come and see as though, bas ladki dekhne ko aaye hain, but in 2 hours, they go to a different place and the marriage takes place. So unless we fight, unless we, empower children much earlier, teaching boys what, small act of harassment can do, changes the girl's life forever, taking her out of school, getting married, having children. And I have seen young boys, complete shock on their faces. Really, is that what happens when we harass on the streets? We never thought, we didn't know what to do. We stood around the corner. The girls came around. We didn't know what to do. We started laughing. We did something. We really didn't mean to harass, but we wanted to be part of the big boys club. And so therefore, all these role models will happen either online or in person. I refuse to use the word offline because now this is a new COVID word, it's in person. I prefer that because now suddenly online has become the real world, and, offline has become the virtual world has become the real world, and the real world has become a virtual world, right? Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Next up, we have a question from Rudra Chatterjee ji. If he's here with us, he can unmute himself and ask the question directly to the panelist.
Hello, I am Rudra, and thank you for the insight that you have given us, and also thank you to Professor Vibhuti ji. So, what my question is that when you were talking about the girl has to, after getting married, every girl has to change their names according to the last name of their husband or the partner. And nowadays, I am from Bengal, and I have seen many of my cousin sisters. They have stopped to change their name according to the last name of their partners, but they have kept the last name of their fathers. So my question would be that is it not also showcasing the belongingness to the male, or showcasing, symbolizing that the daughter is the quote unquote property of the male as a, I mean, so my question is the last name, if the last name is kept, is either his of her husband or her father. So, I mean, is it making any difference, or will it make any difference if whoever is taking the courage can break the binary of changing or not changing the names and denying the last name? So my question would be that. And also one more
I
question
agree.
I had, that when you and one more question, when you said that the in answer of Vibhuti ji, that you guys, I mean, whenever you work in rural India, so you tend to collectivize women and to give, I mean, and to enable them and empower them with knowledge and awareness. But as you also mentioned, that prevention is also very important. So, is it? I mean, is that? Is it? Will it not be more impactful if we can collectivize the boys and teach them the basic ethics and basic approach to not as anyone as a female, but as a human? So these are two questions.
So yeah, so I'll go with the second question first. Of course, and organizations, my organization, of course, we work with children from the age of 7 or 8, 10. You know, from third standard. Yeah, we don't give lectures gender equality, but you know, like filling a cycle, running, climbing a tree. You know, you don't have to explain that you are equal. You just do things that are equal, right? And children learn more by observing than by what lectures you give them, or doing housework at home. Yeah, not leaving home until the girl and the boy have washed the vessels or whatever together and both go to school together. So all these things are being done. There is no doubt, and we have to work with. So we also work with young married couples. We call them Anand Miravas. Where we have fun, lot of non-sexual touch to each other, lot of non-malicious teasing of each other. Because in a arranged marriage, these things are not allowed, right? If she just says kya or whatever, he can get another wife, or say, I'm the one who's so because they both are adolescents. Yeah, she's 17 or 16 or 17, he's 19 or 20, right? But patriarchy allows him to get married again, but not her to get married again. The consequences, are because of the structures. So we do that. We register their marriages. They wear their wedding clothes again. When she kicks a football, yeah, and he looks at her differently and says, oh my goodness, I can do that. Or make them a team when they're doing a jigsaw puzzle together. Then, he's not in competition with her, but he's in a lot of stuff where people are laughing. We talk of contraception. During that, we talk of domestic violence laws. We talk of, tell them where the health structure is. So we have these Anand Meravas of, young married couples. So there are lots of interventions that we do. Having said that, it's not the job of the women's movement to sensitize men, isn't it? It's not the job of the Dalits to sensitize Brahmins against the caste system, right? The Savarnas have to give up their privileges themselves, and men have to give up their privileges themselves. Women have already been double, triply burdened at home, and in the workplace, and it's not their job really to do triple labor within the movements as well. Your first question about the names, yeah, Vibhuti ji has not changed her name to her husband's name. I have not, changed to my husband's name. So of course, again, it's the father's name. My son and my two granddaughters, have now carry the last name of their mother rather than having the last name of So what I'm saying is, do not wait for the best to become the enemy of the good. Yeah, do not say that, we will do this once patriarchy is gone. And today, act now. Act right now. Yeah. If not me, then who? And if not now, then when, right? Isn't it? So, or if not you, then who? If not now, then, then when? Yeah. So we have to start acting right now. See, structures to henna, they are like very thick. One can call like a huge, chains. Yeah. Break them wherever you can. So if people are handcuffed and if people are tied together, today at least they can run if the legs are not shackled anymore. Yeah. They can remove their hands if the hand shackles are broken. And a smaller chain is easier to run with than a bigger chain. Yeah. So break the chain wherever you can. Do not worry. Now the movements from which I came, my children, both my children did not have a second name until they became adults. Yeah, because Jayaprakash Narayan told us, the only way to get rid of caste is to marry intercaste and to give up your family names, because family names denote caste. Yeah, and so therefore we did not give many of our friends, have the name. So, if, for example, if somebody's, mother's name is A and father's name is B, then they will use their first name and they will use A and B. Maybe whatever, Anita, whatever, whatever, Rakesh or whatever, or, Rafiq or whatever, they will use those. So different people use different experiments to, get rid of the family name. So Of course, and do you know that the surnames, the family names were brought by the British? We did not have family names earlier. Did you know that? That this is something that European patriarchy brought to our country, like they brought 377, which criminalized homosexuality. We had never criminalized homosexuality. Not that we were very, very happy about homosexuality in our country, but there was never criminalization of homosexuality. So law came from European, Calvinist kind of, very highly, conservative kind of way of looking at stuff. And so therefore, not that we are great, but colonization was a terrible crime that went into the culture of those who were colonized. So Rudraji, I hope I've been able to address your questions.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. But I mean, I'm just giving it in one sentence so that I can see if my understanding is correct. So you're saying that whenever possible and wherever possible, just try to make a impact. It doesn't mean always that impact has to be large in volume.
Correct. Small picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One drop, many drops make an ocean, right? So, do not. Every night when you go to sleep, ask, did I challenge any structures today? Yeah, I did.
No, and some of those struggles in the Hinsa Mukti Parishad, no, women from the remotest part of India and the first generation learners they have shared are so inspiring, no? That and they are
they are 80% of the stage. Now we are having Maharashtra Mahila Arogya Parishad in Palghar district in April. 80% of the 3 days are the people, the Shudras create knowledge and the Brahmans write the pothis, right? It's the researchers who write that. It's, university professors. But knowledge is created through sweat. Yeah. However raw it may be, that is knowledge. And it's processed, with theories, and it's, so the survivor never is in the, in the paradigm. It is, what are the outcomes of that research? What are the publications that come out of that research? So, I think we have to put the people who are the most important there. And the people who create knowledge have to be the one to, and there's a lot of work we do for 2 years, preparing, getting mentoring, getting to say, this one came and said this one. No, what were the commonalities? What were the differences that people do? That is research, right? It's to analyze what you have done. And so you do that throughout 2 years, but you don't go on the stage. 80% of the stage belongs to those to whom it should have belonged, but did not belong for the past 5,000 years. It's returning the resources to the owner.
Correct.
Yes, absolutely true, ma'am. So we do have many more questions in the Q&A box. I would like to ask, but some of the participants has raised their questions. I would encourage them to ask anything they want. Dr. Poonam ji has raised her hand. Ma'am, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you so much, Dr. Manisha and Professor Vibhuti. It is really interesting to know from you. So I work on gender-based violence and I did my thesis on women's courts, the Nari Adalat. I did an ethnographic study in Jharkhand and I tried to explore how Nari Adalat negotiate with different local stakeholders to support the victims of gender-based violence, when especially the domestic violence victims in their communities. So like my work is more towards the community intervention. One question which is like still with me and I'm still struggling is, many time women do negotiate with their roles when they come and interact with many powerful stakeholders. And when even Nari Adalat women want to support the victims, because of the social reality of the victims, because most of the time they are dependent on the male members or their husbands, many time they do not report those violence to the police, or they do not go for do not take any formal approach. And what I understood that in that position, the agency of women is always constructed by her social reality and what like how her vulnerability is shaped. So like my question is, in such scenario, even when the community organizations are trying to help, what else can be imagined or can be approached? Because Otherwise, they may not be able to help the victim. And it is also sometimes the limitation of those community or organizations, as well as the human who wants or aspire justice in her cases. Thank you.
Give the possibility of a dream, that's all. Leaving a violent partner is not an act, it is a process.
Yes.
And even if she leaves for 15 minutes, 15 years later, she or her daughter might be to leave her. Yeah. So never ever think that there is, if you're not an agent, you're dead. Any survivor itself means that there has been agency, isn't it? And James Scott talks the weapons of the weak, and he talks of public transcripts and private transcripts. And he says that the weapons of the weak are not going head on because that is suicidal. Yeah? So they will negotiate. The fact that you do not want to act today itself might be your agency. Or I know, women in my community who have actually, precipitated a beating because they know that, the situation is rising to an extent where there will be a beating, there might be. So they just feel, let the thunderstorm come, because they know that once he's beaten, for the next days, he's going to be saying whatever, not saying sorry, but behaving differently. And then she can make her escape. So then therefore, why did she answer back? She should have kept quiet. No, that was her agency. So unless we are in that person's life, we can never understand. It's like asking a torture victim, did the police torture you? And then you leave the police station. What's going to happen to the person? So, किसके नाम का सिंदूर लगाती है, किसके नाम का मंगलसूत्र पहनती है, किसके नाम पे हल्दी कुमकुम को बुलाया जाता है, सवाष्ण भोजन के लिए बुलाया जाता है. It's you or me. I used Hindi words because you cannot translate them equally into English, right? So all of that, if it happens, because my husband is alive and because I'm living with my husband, and there are proverbs, one part of one chapter of my PhD work was on local, local galis and local proverbs, and sexual and caste, abuses, and how they were also connected with sexuality. So many proverbs, खड़े ससुराल में जाना है और लेट के बाहर आना है. हिंदी में है ना, डोली अंदर जाती है, अर्थी बाहर आती है कि नहीं? She cannot walk outside with her own 2 feet. हमारी लड़की, हम लोग खानदानी है. Our girl doesn't talk of domestic violence. Or child, you've been living with us for the past 6 months, but now the younger daughter has to get married, and the other family will say, तुमको तो घर में बेटियां बिठाने की आदत हो गई है. You go back. Yeah? Or I do not talk of my domestic violence because my didi is staying at home with my parents. That's why I cannot speak. So the answers, are, everybody knows who cannot recognize violence, you tell me.
True.
Isn't it? You try to kill, an insect, the insect runs away from you. Even with that tiny brain. You think people don't understand that there is violence in people's lives? So survival strategies are different, isn't it? Just give the possibility of a dream and just say, what is happening to you is wrong. It cannot be justified. मेरे से गलती हो गई ना, उन्होंने मेरे को भरे चौक में जला देना चाहिए. क्यों? She has never been asked this question. Why? Why should he hit you because you made a mistake? Is the beating going to remedy the mistake? No. So I think this is what we constantly need to do. Not, how many in our counseling center did we have, what is, the funders are saying we should have, 500 people, tick, tick, tick. How many should go? How many reconciliations going back to the husband? If we start working like that, then we are part of the problem. If you leave home disempowered, it's a problem. You stay in a violent marriage empowered, you know how to deal with it. Create spaces. Talk of opportunities, talk of possibilities. Do not pass judgment. She doesn't want to report domestic violence. No, keep record. हमारे यहाँ पे a woman who was burnt by her husband and died in the arms of our कार्यकर्ता. And the woman says, that I can still smell the flesh sometimes. I have been inside mobs, women who I have known burnt. You go into the burns ward and you ask her, kya ho gaya? And she's saying, pani, ice cream lao, na tai, ice cream, tai, pani lao, pani lao. What do you ask her? You want her to tell you the whole story, and then the woman dies, and then you go to the morgue, and you stand at the postmortem, and then you take her body back to the village, and you stand there in the cremation. What do you do? When do you get to cry? And then after my crying is over, the anger that I feel for the mother's family, for the native family, is equal or more to that of the husbands. The compromises they make behind your back, getting a younger daughter married to the same man, dowry नहीं देनी पड़ेगी फिर से, उसके बच्चों को माँ से मिलेगी. So the compromises that people make, so the violence of structure starts from childhood. सिर्फ हम लोग जो है मैच बॉक्स जो है वो ससुराल वालों के हाथ में होती है. They know as long as your mother's family supports you, you do not get killed. It's when they know that you have gone 100 times, back and forth that they kill you. And that the women knew. That if I leave now and I come back 5 days later, I will come back to a lower social status in my life. So there are very valid reasons why people do not, and this woman died in our arms, and everybody, including her daughter, said that no, it was a suicide. Her daughter was married. They didn't want the responsibility of looking after the younger brothers and sisters. So we were against the husband's family, we were against the native family, and we were against her children. And so much pressure, bribery, all kinds of threats. Now, what really brought up 3 years earlier, when the defense lawyer said this was like, one thing, never killed. 3 years earlier, we had records of her having come to a counseling center for domestic violence. Those were the records that the judge saw, and the man got life sentence. I am not in favor of, lifelong killing people, castrating people, doing encounters, or giving huge sentences. No. I believe, that the surety of conviction is more important than the severity of punishment. Okay. The surety of conviction. If I know that rape, so, perpetrators are, convicted for the rape that they committed, that gives me more courage. A woman doesn't want to report rape. Let her not report rape. Just collect evidence today. When she wants to report the rape, the evidence is there. So we do all the backstage work. The agent is the woman. When we were eating with Dalits, and obviously what is so great? And they started asking us, but baki log kyun nahi khate? We said, पूछिए ना सवाल. Maybe somebody wants to eat. और जो नहीं बोलेगा उसकी hypocrisy बाहर आ जाएगी. So the moment they see one family break that, the question that has bothered them for centuries will come up as a question. Yeah. Just raise questions. Do not provide answers. If you provide answers, you are part of the problem. But give the options.
Yes, ma'am. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, in the chat box, like one of our participants, Nandini has also shared that true, it's also a matter of identity crisis, because in their parental house, it is said that they belong to their marital house, but when a woman gets married, they are somewhat treated as an outsider since they have been raised in a different household. So she's sharing a narrative here in respecting to whatever you have said.
दो घर के मेहमान भूखा, दोन्ही घरचा पाहुणा उपाशी is what we say in Marathi, right? Yeah. And what are we called as soon as we are born? Paraya dhan. We are not people, we are dhan. And dhan of whom? Some paraya family, right? Which, by protecting our virginity before we get married, the family is keeping us, the dhan, safe for the parayas to come, and that unbroken line of men that I talked about for the passage of patriarchal property.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I would like to point out that someone has raised a question as an anonymous attendee. I would like the respective person to kindly just mention their name, and in the meantime, if they are able to unmute themselves, they can question Manisha ma'am directly. And we had one more raised hand. It was from Sheetal ji, Sheetal Sharma ji. If you are still available with us, you can ask your question.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
And first of all, I would like to thank you for such an insightful session. It has been very thought-provoking. And my question is that I would like to ask you that you have worked in the field of gender-based violence and trying to avert it, trying to stop it for, I believe, over decades, over 4 or 5 decades. And you have witnessed a lot of crime, and you have also worked a lot to avert those crimes, help women. And I'm sure you would have witnessed some local practices to do that, some local women helping each other, other organizations. So what do you think is the one best practice that stood out to you and has not been done enough or has not been practiced enough at a national level that could help our society or that could help women?
Listening carefully, listening, understanding what is being said, understanding what is being insinuated. Yeah, so if a woman comes and sits in our health center, the feminist health center, and says she's come for a headache, but the way she's sitting or the body language does not show headache, but it shows lower backache. Yeah, and she's not taking the paracetamol and leaving the health center, but is sitting there. She's trying to tell you something different. In a Gram Sabha, when the Dalits sit on the corners and when the Sarpanch says something, that is the actual moment when somebody, kind of the tobacco, they spit out. Yeah, these are the weapons of the weak. Yeah? Who is not speaking? Listening to silence. Not jumping into the silence, as verbose people, because, we are taught to use thoughts instead of feelings. Yeah, we use thoughts, right? We use this part, the brain, but not so much the heart. And often words instead of thoughts, right? And we are verbose, we know. And not that the words that we are using are, I'm just saying that that's not enough. Yeah. But there are different ways to understand. So, kind of going raw and understanding what somebody's trying to say, what they haven't said, listening to, not jumping into silences. Silences are not always uncomfortable. Yeah? They can be very comfortable, and sometimes allowing internal tension. So one small, immediately something I remember, Chitalji. When I went to live in the village when our son was 1 year old, and we went to live in a drought. So Ramesh will be there in one of the sessions, is my partner with whom I met during the emergency, and then we went to live in the village. So we started Masoom together. And we went with our political baggage, right? We went from the women's movement, we went from the anti-emergency movement, we went from, all kinds of rights movements. So automatically women's groups started forming around us. Now, how did these women's groups? So I remember what I did. Every caste, lane, because everybody lives in all the castes live in different lanes, right? So, the Kaikadis, the Muslims, everybody. I held different meetings with everybody. Not together, because formal equality, who will speak and who will not speak. For substantive equality, you have to get everybody a voice, right? Equity is the way to equality, right? Equity is social justice. So talking to every group separately, asking what their concerns were, finding out what the conflicts were with other groups. And after having some 20-25 meetings like that, proposing getting, to meet together. Proposing, and then asking if we could meet. And I just proposed and said, let's meet in the Gram Panchayat. Oh my goodness, Gram Panchayat? Men have never entered the Gram Panchayat. What are we going to do in the Gram Panchayat? It's a political space. You can't meet outside the Sarpanch's house. You can't meet outside the police party's house, right? You have to meet in a place that is empowering. And few weeks later, the Sarpanch apne aap chabi deke chale jate the before. Once a week, one evening, they can make it, available for the women. Now, when these happening, they were not easy. They were not easy. All the Balutedar, Dalit, all the minority women, the Buddhist women, they were not talking. They were just listening. After some time, when, they knew that this was a space to speak, cannot imagine the rage and the anger that came out. And I was facilitating without deflecting. When the Maratha women started speaking of something, and, I remember that, one, woman stood up and said, what are you talking? We have seen your men get inside the beds of our mothers-in-law and our mothers. Are you trying to tell us that we are equal? All these had to come out. The biases of women who had, against women who did not have children, or, against, somebody whose husband had died, or somebody who was living with her parents. All these come out. And then when a woman with children also, explained what was happening in her house and the violence she was undergoing, there were different kinds of solidarities that were built and actions were taken up together. So recognize difference. That is one more thing the feminist movement taught us. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. We do not have one book. We do not have one prophet. We do not have one leader. It has advantages and disadvantages, but it allows for anyone to recognize their ways of challenging patriarchy. What is feminism? After 50 years of being in this movement, what I have simply understood is that you recognize that patriarchy is one of the terrible systems on this planet. Yeah, and I don't like this system, and I'm going to challenge the system. And I can't challenge the system unless I challenge other systems. These are the only 4 sentences I fully understood in the past 50 years. Yeah. So I'm not against men. I am against patriarchy. And so therefore, some of the strategies that haven't been is try to consider everybody as equal to, say, kitne mahila mandal banaye, kitne bank accounts khole, how many loans did you give out to? So these won't work. We started the loans and credits program because we found severe indebtedness because of health expenditure. That's the reason we started the savings and credits program. So there has to be a why. There has to be a why for your what. Unless we question the why and we constantly, self-reflect and we constantly, kind of challenge ourselves to say, could this have been done differently? Could you have democratized more? Could you have trusted people more? If we keep asking those questions, then we are reflexive. If you think I did this, so I have to be possessive about this throughout my life, we have stopped changing, we have stopped learning, we have stopped growing. So I think, learning, unlearning, growing, challenging ourselves, being compassionate to others. If somebody falls and trips, hold them. Don't just think that because, oh, this is the politically correct, position to take. Do not leave your comrades, hurt on the way. And if you want to fast, African proverb, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. You want to walk far, walk together. We can never, I remember when I was in Sophia College and, the school, the Sadhana school for the mentally challenged, we taught them for a whole month, on a particular day to have a race. And when the race started and one of the children fell, one kid fell down, everybody ran back to him. And I was sitting there and I was saying, what were you trying to teach these kids? You unlearn, you learn from them. The race is not important. It's your friendship that's important. And I think, compassion, love, empathy, kindness, gentleness. Yeah. I think these are everlasting features. If we don't lose those, then we have a hope of changing the world. Otherwise, we'll just be like them, right? With our little power, if we are terrible, then what are we going to be when you get that kind of power, right? So it's only love, non-violence, compassion, empathy. They never go out of fashion. And let nobody ever tell you they are not cool. Always cool to be kind and gentle and nice, which does not mean not challenging structures.
Yes, ma'am.
But you can challenge a structure, and yet not, So we have had men who we have taken to court because of sexual, molestation, but the sister has come to us when she has had domestic violence, his sister. Or somebody with whom we have had a long-term quarrel coming to us for drugs for tuberculosis because, she feels that, we will not let her down. I think that is a social change. Otherwise, put all the men in one line, put everybody, shoot them off, right? Shoot everybody. Not the answer. Never, forget that there is a possibility of change.
Indeed, ma'am. Absolutely. It was actually very, overwhelming to hear all of this. Yeah, so we had one question from Paridhi ji. Yeah, she has been raising her hand, so she can ask a question now.
Oh, good evening, ma'am. I'd like to thank you. Your talk has been really insightful. I'm really looking forward to this fellowship. I wanted to speak to you about sexual violence, especially child sexual abuse. Um, I feel like sexual abuse in general is very damaging, but when it comes to child sexual abuse, the psychological consequences of child sexual abuse are just extremely damaging, and um, they sort of shake your core values. And we've seen that eventually builds into, say, personality disorders, or it leads to more sexual violence encounters generally. And having read a little bit about it, uh, I've come to know that there are very clear signs after sexual trauma, after psychological trauma in children, because children tend to act out. Their trauma sort of uh, comes out in the action of acting out and doing very visible uh, sort of things. But there is absolutely no knowledge. Nobody knows on the ground level that these are signs. Uh, People are just unaware. And which is what I want to understand. How do we start dialogue? How do we start talking? Because I feel like these are issues that can be helped if there was more knowledge.
Yeah, I think, sexuality education, usually in Marathi, there's a saying that, the elephant has passed, now it's only the tail that's left. I believe that, with the tail, you should learn to push the elephant through the crack. Yeah. Don't miss a chance. And so therefore, when you're talking of everything, if you see children in the crowd, or if you see, young parents in the crowd, mention the rights of gay people in a passing sentence. Talk about discrimination of women who lost their husbands in a passing sentence. Talk about child sexual abuse, and then see how the audience picks it up. And give the opportunity for the audience to raise a specific question that, might come in their mind, because, you've done a broad kind of a. Of course, sexual violence is one of the most heinous crimes. There is no doubt about it. And it's happened. Do you know that 1 in 3 women are sexually abused? 1 in 4 or 5 boys have been sexually abused, in childhood. So that makes a lot of us on this particular group, right? It could be from unwanted, the way people have looked at us, the unwanted touches that we have had, to repeated rapes over years and years. It can range from, and it can be multiple people, who've been raping you. And many times in the, place where I work, it comes out in the form of a 13-year-old getting pregnant. She doesn't know. It's been happening to her since she was 5 years old or 4 years old. How does she know that if, ek baar to period aa gaya, it didn't come for 4-5 months? Well, I don't know what that was. And then, she's like 5 or 6 months pregnant. And that's when the whole community sits up. It's moral panic. But she was being abused, nobody stood by her. Go into the veranda, go into the backyard when that man comes home. Why are you allowing that man to come in contact with her again? Many times girls are more upset with the parent who did not support them. Many times they're more angry with the mother than they are with the abusive father. Yeah? And so therefore all these situations happen. But people don't take cognizance, and then that is what doesn't allow people to have boundaries between self and somebody else, me and somebody else, right? Because and then there's a lot of risk-taking behavior that comes up. You start thinking that your worth is only sexual, or you start putting out your antenna for that violence to come up. You start seeing, oh my goodness, this is happening, and maybe this is happening because I'm a bad person. So it just particularly messes up everybody. We have the Protection of Children Against Sexual Offences Act, but there are very few who will actually come up and talk. Imagine if a woman cannot talk about the violence in her from her husband or in-law when she's 28 or 30. Can you imagine a 4-year-old talking about a father who's raping, or a grandfather or an uncle who's raping? Where is the words? Where is the power? And so therefore it becomes an unspeakable crime because nobody can really talk about it. The child does not have vocabulary. to even able to talk about it. Now imagine if we are going to say, bring death penalty to the rape. First of all, it's just totally idiotic. I'm many against death penalty per se. Yeah, you cannot have death penalty. That's one thing. But if you bring it for rape, you're actually saying that a woman died when she got raped. Yeah, we are not dead. We are only raped. Yeah, we are alive. We are survivors. Yeah, and I want to tell this to anybody on this, on this panel or anywhere, men, women, trans people, intersex people. We might have been raped, but we are alive and we are here to tell the story. We might have not told the story, but the story is there inside us, and we did not deserve what happened to us. So that is one thing. But then, if you say death penalty, can you imagine the family standing by a child when the father will have the death penalty? How many more acquittals there will be, and how many few convictions there will be, even practically, right? And now, what is the POCSO being used against? It is used in everywhere, including my community and everywhere else. It is to bring back adolescent girls who elope or have consensual romantic relationships. That is the reason why. That's why I say feminists are, uneasy with the law. We have never felt comfortable with law. So I agree with you. It is one of the worst crimes. Not that there is a hierarchy of crimes, but definitely, definitely there is a hierarchy in this particular case. And just getting children to talk, believe children. Children are imaginative. Children will tell lies. Children will exaggerate. They will do everything. But if you see a repeated story coming up, if you see behavior towards a particular person that enters the house, or you see bedwetting suddenly starting, after the child has been potty trained. Yeah, if you see, different kinds of things, create a situation in which the child will talk and you will listen. Do not assume anything. Do not put words in the child's mouth, but just listen and trust the child and tell the child that the child will be safe in your presence. That's the only way to. We have found that sexuality education, the two schools that refused to allow us to do sexuality education, in both those schools, the teachers were molesting kids. So there is a vested interest of patriarchy to not do sexuality education and to not talk about violence and sexual abuse.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. We have one question from Armaji. I guess we had one question from him earlier. We can ask now.
Yeah, hi ma'am, good evening.
Yeah.
My name is Irma.
Okay.
My question comes from few experiences of women. And my question is basically women, those who have, supported someone, their friends, empowered someone, encouraged someone, have also faced similar kind of violence. But the dilemma is how they can support their friends but cannot stand for themselves. And I believe that there are a lot of women out there who have empowered their friends, stood for their friends, but when it comes to them, they are so much in dilemma. They take so much time in contemplating if I should report it or shouldn't I. It also comes to the family honor and everything. And the person is educated, empowered himself, herself. So how do we address that? Is it a trauma response or psychological? So what would you say on this?
I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, so I cannot answer those questions with any kind of conviction. But the fact that the person is helping others, that means that person has recognized that that is violence. And therefore, it cannot happen unless the person has recognized violence in their own lives. And there must be compelling reasons why the person is not. See, it's very easy for me to tell somebody to do something, but within my family, it's very difficult because I know the people. I'm able to make excuses for the people. I know how terrible they can be if I challenge them. So sometimes it's much easier. But the fact that this person is helping other people, it just means that the person is able to verbalize, is able to vocalize, right? And well, there will be some who will just do something for themselves and never for others. So this is this person, who's helping others but isn't able to. Maybe this person requires more support, more love, more. Maybe I don't know what it may be, what that family holds against this person, what happens to the finances, what happens to the family back home. I think just, constantly give support and just see that the person has the possibility of leaving. I don't know. It's very very sad. The story is really very sad, but what to do?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. And we have one question from Amrita ji as well. Like she's working on gender studies. She says that, as you have mentioned, that women don't have vocabularies, and she agrees with you on that point. So she questions like how to create or generate women language system.
The songs that the women's movement has, done, and the best songs, some of the best songs by women in my community. It used to be like this. We had this, one of our Dalit Karyakartas. After the, 2-3 hour session, she used to come back in the afternoon and sing a song. And they would say, it's her own, the words and the lyrics and the tune she had done during lunchtime. And powerful words in that song. So there are different verbal, non-verbal ways in which women learn. There's so much vocabulary. The women in the morning when they used to grind the corn, and you require rhythm. You require couplets, and Marathi is called Jati Varcha Ovya. Jati is the Ovya is like the two lines. When I pass on the stick to you, and when you pass it on to me. So there used to be there is so much astuteness on so much criticism of some of our biggest mythological heroes. So much criticism and talking about how the wife was treated. So it's not that people don't realize. It's just that they don't have the modern vocabulary. And the Constitution gives us all those words, right? They're right there. Secularism, socialism, social justice, equality, freedom, everything. So one of the ways to give the vocabulary is to start teaching the Constitution. That's what we do in 6 districts. We have 30 fellows, operationalizing. When you say fraternity, how do you operationalize it? How do you operationalize secularism? So, isn't it? I can stand up in this country and say, I don't practice religion. I'm an atheist. Now, that's what, like the Constitution gave me the right to not practice religion. Everybody who practices religion in this country must know that's also a right given to them by the Constitution. Not given, I'm sorry, right recognized by the Constitution. Rights are not given. But so the Constitution is a very, very strong place to start.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so I guess we have certainly few more questions for you. All the participants have been so engaging and are so interested, answering all the questions to you. So we have Irshad ji here who has raised his hand. They can ask their question. Irshad ji, you can ask your question now.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, it is Ishrat, not Irshad, ma'am.
Okay. I apologize.
It is okay, ma'am. Hello, everyone. I am Ishrat Batul from Aligarh Muslim University. I am also doing a PhD in Women Studies. And from BA Honors, I was in Women Studies. But unfortunately, I do not recognize any violence till date. Near about 2 or 3 years before, I got marriage before 5 years. And when I leave my parental home, I recognize that there was really discrimination with me, as my brothers and we sisters, we are 7 brothers and sisters. But I recognize that. But after leaving my parental home, and after 2 years, I face domestic violence, marital rape, and all that. After that, I file a complaint. First of all in NCW, and after that in court. But still I am waiting for justice. I do not get any justice. So ma'am already told that there are rights, but where are these rights? If there is Constitution, where is the Constitution?
It's there. Baba Saheb Ambedkar himself said that we are, bringing progressive thoughts in a hostile soil. Yeah. The soil is not ready for the constitution. Yeah. So it's there. And as I said, the courts don't give us justice. They only interpret laws. They're ruled by, they're ruled by power. They're ruled, by so many different, which has nothing to do with what happened in our lives or happened in other people's lives. So I think, it's only getting women who understand, women who've gone through similar experiences, that becomes the healing. What can I say? I'm sorry. It's
Ma'am,
it's very painful, to understand as, and, in a world of, when we used to file cases about women being killed, when I was still living in the village, I remember we filed 7 cases, we lost every case. And we used to come back from the court. And I stopped going to the court because one day I thought I was going to, throw my shoe or something like that, down the gallery. And it wouldn't have been good for us, the case. And when women used to come back and, we used to sit, we used to cry, we used to do everything. And then I used to say, but how did we even expect to win in patriarchy? Like a woman is cut in pieces and they, the defense lawyer saying it was suicide, like what part of her body did she cut first? And threw it in different parts of the village. Now, if, they, if they knew that it was murder, then it was like she was having an affair with somebody in the neighborhood. And then we found that the village only reports the cases of their daughter's violence, but not their daughter-in-law's violence. So, as long as you're taking the Beti violence, they're fine, but you cannot speak. So these are all very painful realizations, right? But the important thing is not to lose faith. Now I'm really sorry, because I'm talking to a survivor, and I cannot imagine. I cannot say I know what you're going through. I don't know what you're going through. I cannot imagine what you're going through, and you have to lead. You have to lead the conversation and take us to places that, we didn't travel in our comfort zones. Challenge our comfort zones. Challenge us, not in a non-compassionate way. In a compassionate way with love, but teach what that resilience is that still, gives you the hope, and gives you the resilience. And you're on this course, right? You're in this course.
Ma'am, actually, people are not coming forward for complaint these cases. This is also the reason that they know we will not fight against all this system or all these people. So I think this is the main reason that people are not come not ahead for the filing the cases.
And the police don't take cases because they say tomorrow, you will go back to your husband. So look at the cycle of domestic violence, right? You are invalidated at home, you are invalidated with the state, in society.
Yeah, I think we should also read Flavia's autobiography. Nearly 15 times she went back. She came out after extreme violence. She had to go back mainly because she was less educated. She had she was old SEC, or she did not have money to feed her children, or she was already pregnant and then she had miscarried. All sorts of extremely horrible things were happening with her. The moment she came to women's organization and she knew that it is going to be a hard way to rebuild her life, but at least she has somebody to support, because she went for confession, she went to the church, she went to the relatives, she went to the social workers and counselors. All of them, they analyzed the problem, but nobody was ready to do the hand holding. While in women's movement, what she got was it. So over last 30 years, all those who have come in touch with us, we can't say that any of them have gone backward, whether it is in terms of education or employment or even small little house in their own name. You can see, and I meet all those women who had come as a survivor in 1980, 85, 1990, and now they are the ones who are helping others. So I think what Dr. Manisha repeatedly told us that organizing, collectivizing, handholding, solidarity, support, that's the only way we can come up. Because we have all other forces are against us. State is against us, legal system is against us, community is also full of patriarchal biases, relatives, kinship network, on-laws, all are there. The only thing, as Nirmala Sathe has written a beautiful song, Sangathan ki dhal, Ekta ki talwar, hum haath mein lenge, we are not going to be afraid of anybody. So that's the most popular song we have. And that always energized us. No? So I think solidarity is the only solution I can see when we are faced with like such a major violence in our personal lives. I think there was one more hand also. Yeah, Nikhat. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ishrat ji, and also Vibhuti ji and Manisha ma'am ji for like answering the question. And we have one more question in the chat, in the Q&A box, right? So the question is, one of our participant, Amrut ji has been working in public health. So he's a public health person. So he wants to ask how we can contribute to reduce or to eliminate the gender-based violence other than like creating awareness. So the question is particularly directed to his field, and he further says, be it man or women, they won't open up or reveal their point of view when we ask or have one-to-one interview with the participants. So what is your view on this?
So one of the demands that the feminist movement has been raising is that recognize violence as a public health issue. As a human rights issue is much easier to recognize, but a public health issue. Now, why is it a public health issue? Because public health, it shows so many of the characteristics of what is a public health issue. It has a particular trajectory, it has different impacts. It happens during certain times. So I know that women who are living in the United States also will talk about, how the violence increases on the day that there is a phone call from the in-laws household. Yeah. Or during festivals when family gathers together, or when joint families meet together, or a particular relative comes. So there are particular triggers that are known. Also, we know that, there are certain syndromes. So every time I tell the doctor I fell down the stairs or I knocked, whatever, how is it that the clavicular bone, or, certain, how are certain bruises distributed over my body? How come I always have a black eye? Yeah. How come I always have, scratches? How come if I'm pregnant, there's always a kick on my stomach? Yeah. So therefore, there are certain patterns. We know that at night, there is much more risk of homicide or suicide. Yeah. And so there are patterns, and we also know the impact on the person is not just immediate, though there is immediate, there is physical, there is psychological, there's a lot of, but there's also a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of the health conditions that, happened at that time, we kicked in the kidneys over time. Yeah. So these will have impact on those particular, on those organs. So there is immediate impact. And here healthcare providers really can play a big role, because if I go to a doctor or a hospital, I can always say that, I went for, I had, kind of had a headache, or if I was, not well. I cannot go to the police station or to the court, because that almost becomes irreversible. Abhi we'll see you in court. That is what the family will say. So therefore, doctors, providers at all levels, from super specialties to village level health workers, the ASHAs, the accredited social health activists, or the Anganwadi workers also in the ICDS, because children in the ICDS program, 3-year-olds will talk about violence. Children tell everything that happens in the house, with their own embellishments outside. And, so it's, while it can be entertaining, there can also be a lot of issues that children tell us, that are there. So rather than laugh or telling the child to keep quiet, these are places that we can identify violence. And, there are, as I said, there is that escalation that happens. The first time it may be, I'll hit you. The second time I hit you. The third time it can be a fist. The fourth time it can be a kick. The fifth time it will be an object. Yeah, and it just keeps going. And, so we know that the escalation also happens. It's like multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. So there are so many patterns that it follows the health. So therefore, definitely see it as a public health issue, and the impact that it has intergenerationally. Girls are growing up seeing mothers being beaten, and so they think of that as being normal. Boys see men being violent against women, and so they think that that is the way to be a man. So it is never too early to say, "Itna hi to hua hai. Why are you here?" And it is never too late. "Arey, wo to mar gayi. What's the point?" No. Even if she's dead, there are the children. So it's never too early and never too late. So again, I would go back and say, act now. Act now. Do not postpone your act, but do not act in a way that you advise people on what they cannot do. It's not about you. It's about the person who has come to you. It's also about the person who is not present in the room. To help one woman, we cannot, marginalize we cannot trample the rights of another marginalized group. Okay. So we have to be very careful in terms of seeing that, act little, stop, reflect, self-reflect, ask people. When in doubt, democratize. When in doubt, ask. There is no shame in asking. I just, I know it's a doctor question. I just want to give once you know what the answer is, it's so simple. Now, when our savings and credits program started, until we reached 1 crore rupees in terms of what women were borrowing, nobody was bothering with us. Okay. Suddenly, Solapur Chadar Becho, Head and Shoulders, or some kind of I shouldn't have used a brand name, but just kind of use a shampoo to sell. So plastic slippers, whatever. Yeah. So so those became started coming to us. Then who came to us? Insurance companies. Okay. Ensure you have 6,000 women members. At that time, we have 6,000 women members. Insure all of them. So we said, no, we don't take any decision until we talk to the local women. They thought we were bluffing, and we didn't want to take a decision. We said, no, we do not take a decision. We put it forward to the group. We had like 300-400 women's gathering at one time. So we put forward the question. Can you imagine the women's response? They couldn't stop laughing. That was not the response we expected. They said, now what? You want to give the husband one more incentive to kill us? What's wrong with you? Can you imagine how somebody else sees something completely differently? The response that one would have started wondering, then we asked, who would you like insured? And then they started talking of men, then we couldn't recognize which one was the breadwinner. It got too complicated. So then we said, no, let's not go into insurance. But, hey, health, medical insurance, it wasn't medical insurance, it was life insurance. Why would you life insure somebody if that money is going to go to somebody else? But wisdom comes from them. As I told you, once I tell you the last sentence, it really is so stupid to even think of something. But until I told the last sentence, it's not easy to imagine what women are going to say, right? So when in doubt, ask. When in doubt, democratize. Dr. Antia, who was, our mentor of, Vibhuti's partner, Dr. Amar Jesani, also Dr. Antia used to say that if something doesn't work in a particular way, put it on its head and do exactly the opposite from the other end. Maybe that was the way it should have been done. Maybe it was being done wrongly all the time. And that is the innovation. So, the doctor who asked the question, please see this as a public health issue and sensitize doctors around you, because they can really make, but you can take the person into another room. I need to do an examination, and you can take the person away from the perpetrators to talk, right? Isn't it? So many opportunities to talk to the survivor. The battered women syndrome, you see it coming, you see certain, as I said, certain bruises, certain fractures, whatever. If you see that and you read about that, and then, you can ask certain questions in a very gentle way or in a direct way if the person is alone. Do not ignore any signs of trauma or violence.
Yes, indeed, ma'am. Absolutely. We need to create an environment, friendly to the patient so that they can share their, like all the experiences that they have so far. So, yes, I guess we have covered almost all the questions, and I guess we are not missing out on anyone. And if we are,
Excuse me,
yes, yes. Yes, yes.
ma'am. Yes, this is Dr. Namrita from Karnataka, and I'm working on gender-based violence, especially how to take action against it by the healthcare providers. Like, I have also trained some around 200 healthcare providers, including doctors, staff nurses, the frontline workers of like Ashas, Anganwadi workers, how to actually detect violence and how to report it and what is to be done after that. But then, as Madam was saying in the last sentence, like the doctors have to actually suspect and then try to take action. When I conducted the training sessions, there were a lot of views on it. Like they were like, why do we need to actually do it when basically their problem is like once they report a case, the police wants them to go on and on, which is a headache for them. First of all, they have so many national programs to be run and all those things. And after that, again, if we report some case, then they have to actually run to the court and to the police station. So they basically don't want that headache. So how to tackle this situation? So what answer can I give them?
Singly is it's difficult. Even when I was talking about Vibhuti ji, or even my home, it's tiny homes. We couldn't like we could keep one survivor or one inter-caste or inter-religious couple that had eloped, or a Karyakarta was thrown out of the house and who didn't have anywhere to go. But you couldn't keep 10 survivors, and that's the reason why women feminist NGOs got formed in the 80s. We needed a
Hmm.
table, chair,
Hmm.
we needed stationery, somebody to be, and who could take the option of sitting there for 2-3 hours. It couldn't be the poorest among us, right? It had to be the
Hmm.
privileged. So then
Hmm.
they could not give those 2 hours voluntarily. You required a tiny
Hmm.
salary, and that organization started actually doing intervention related work. So even here, what we really require is that all the healthcare providers have to be trained simultaneously.
Hmm.
So there's one particular person, and the system has to move. There has to be system
It should
readiness to be able to
it should something come like
confidential.
a act or something.
But one more thing I want to add, the same doctors, when there is a forensic matter, no, in case of drug or murder or this, they go to court, no? Why there is a hesitation only to go, not to go to court in the case of gender-based violence? In all other cases, they have to provide testimony, no?
Yes,
I know,
yes, yes,
so, yeah, so there they have to go and they think it is part of their duty. But is
yes, yes,
gender-based
ma'am.
violence part of their duty?
Hmm.
So here also comes the
Trivialization.
bias, no? Yeah, erasure. Yeah.
Trivialization, because many, they have seen violence, they may be experiencing, through maybe their families or they are themselves perpetrators. The trivialization of ye to hota hi rehta hai. What is this?
Hmm.
Uh, So health system readiness, is there a place to maintain privacy, confidentiality? Are my reports kept safely? Now, even in Masum, in our counseling centers, if there is any, we only use a number. We don't use the name. The name is only in a register that is in lock and key. And if there is any mental, emotional health issues, that is in another file. Because otherwise that paper will be used to do the woman mad, to divorce her
Hmm.
and not give her custody of children. So we have to be really careful. Even if a judge asks us, we do not give anything that violates the confidentiality of our primary client. Yeah, so therefore, if we are able to give all these assurances to people, and to not show shock, or to kind of show disdain, people will start talking. Now once they know that they can talk to Dr. Namrita. Now Dr. Namrita will be having maybe 50 people. Then Dr. Namrata, says that there are also these other 5 people. And then again, we have 10. And then we create another 10. So that is the only increase our tribe. That is the only way to
No
talk
problem.
about it and talk about it and say, how much change it made in a person's life without using the person's name, without which community or village they came from. You have to also understand intersection, like I know that in a particular health center, the women did not want to talk of domestic violence because they were Muslims, and they said that we are not ready to talk about the violence because the police puts down certain surnames. और जब कोई हादसा हो जाएगा तो लेके जाएंगे. They don't want a husband. See, any woman who comes to us does not want her husband killed or tortured. She just wants the violence to end. She's not coming there for feminist reasons. She's not coming there to help anyone else. She's not, coming for equality. She's only coming for the violence to end. That's the reason why she's coming to us, right? So there are intersectional reasons why women will not talk about. But does that mean that, if she's not giving her husband's name to the state, does it mean that the violence is hurting her less? No. The violence is the same, right? She's just becoming the punching bag for the whole community because the community is under fire. And the community, if it is ghettoized, what are they going to say? Jaan hai pyari ki padhai pyari hai? How do you trust those people, who attacked us in spite of being our friends for years and years together? So human rights then get traded. We know that no human right is hierarchically higher or lower to any other human right. But people have to trade the human right to education for the human right to life and safety. So we have to understand the situation from which the person comes and assure that, वो लोग तो ऐसे होते हैं. You go to any village, हमारे में नहीं होता, उनमें होता है. हमारे गांव में कुछ नहीं है, उस गांव में. देता वो कास्ट एंड ऑल पुरानी चीजें हो गया, कोई कास्ट वास्ट नहीं है गाँव में. Doing FGDs, Marathi group of women say that there is no caste, whatever. The Palutedar women's groups came up with 7 or 8 pages of daily experiences of caste. Daily experiences since childhood. So it's from where you're watching, not from where you're looking. So, don't, it's very good, Namrataji, that you're training other doctors. Continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Long way to go.
Correct. But there is hope.
Jana zarur.
Jana.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. So, are there any more questions? If there are any more questions, feel free to ask, and if not, we can go ahead with the introduction from the participants. They can mention their name and the organization and the designation that they work at the organization, and just what's their motivation to join this fellowship. They can kindly share with us. So anyone
I'll
can
show that what they'll do in terms of creative projects.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
So anyone would like to take the initiative to introduce themselves, or shall I just call out the name and we can proceed likewise?
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Irma Kirketa, and I have just submitted my PhD thesis. I'm from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Tuljapur, and my thesis is basically on migration and human trafficking, the lived experiences of Adivasi women from Jharkhand. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. And what do you plan to do in this fellowship in terms of your submission?
Ma'am, actually, I'm looking for more knowledge, and I'm also trying to figure out my postdoctoral subject, related to the same. I want to proceed with the same subject. And as I have invested my 7 years to 8 years of life in research doing MPhil and PhD, so I am thinking of gaining more knowledge and insights from this fellowship program, ma'am.
Yeah. That is there, but in terms of your creative input, like whether you'll write a poetry or short film or
Ma'am,
a research paper, because we are going to come out with an edited volume also.
Ma'am, I was interested to, shoot a video of my research, PhD research, but I was unable to do it because of time constraints. So 2 things I'm planning to do is to shoot a video of women agency, especially, and also write a, research paper on that.
Fine. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
And you can also, all the participants, fellows, you can also contact Dr. Manisha Gupte and all the resource persons whenever you have any query. So the IMPRI team will share their email ID, and we are going to make a WhatsApp group of this fellowship fellows also of this cohort.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
My name is Nandini Sharma. I'm a postgraduate student currently in my 4th semester, and I was motivated to join this fellowship because recently I had come across how gender socialization takes place in the lives of adolescents. So I had written, I'm currently writing an article on the same with my experiences. Hopefully, if it gets published, I'll be more than happy to share it with all of you. Why I was what I want to do in this fellowship is I would really like to write an article regarding gender-based violence in adolescents because they're still in the process of identity formation, so they often face instances of bullying. So I would really love to write an article on that. And if I get the time, because I still have to do my dissertation for the master's, if I am able to afford some time, I would really love to proceed forward with research in this topic.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to join this fellowship. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nandini.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Mehak and I'm from Kashmir. So I've been working on the informal sector and women, and this fellowship really interested me because I thought it would give me an opportunity to look into the gender-based violence that happens within the female domestic helper cohort. So what I'm looking forward is by the end of this fellowship, I'm hopeful to complete a paper that focuses on domestic help sector. So since I'm planning primary data, so it would mostly be about the domestic workers in Kashmir, and I also look forward to writing a blog or something, an essay kind of a thing relating to the same topic. So I'm really happy to be a part of this fellowship, and I had a wonderful time listening to Manisha, ma'am. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mehak.
Good evening,
Hello,
everyone.
everyone. Sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is Dr. Namrata Kulkarni from Karnataka. I am working as assistant professor in a medical college here in Hubli, in the Department of Community Medicine. Previously, I have been in public health for last 10 years in WHO, UNICEF and all. And now I've shifted to academics basically because I have to stay at some place for my kid. So, and I have a 3.8-year-old kid here, daughter. And then I am working now because I worked with Sathi, the organization actually gave me much insights, and it actually helped me to choose my path or area of work. And I'm now working on gender-based violence and LGBTQ. So I have done one or two funded projects, intramural funded projects on the gender-based violence. As I told you just now, madam, like we have trained the health providers regarding gender-based violence, how to increase the reporting and what actions are to be taken and all. Basically, as I'm a doctor and I feel like there is necessity that gender-based violence it has to be included in the curriculum also, medical curriculum also, and all the in the public health facilities also, the doctors have to suspect the cases and come out with the reporting things as I spoke to you. So I'm basically working on that, and in the same field, like down the lane, I just want to do a few studies which help me in showcasing the importance of knowledge and attitudes regarding the healthcare providers towards gender-based violence and its uh, suppression, or actually the what is to be taken. So that is my focus as of now.
Very good. Yeah. Very important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad to be part of here. I am Poonam Barhoi. I am from Assam, and I have completed my PhD from IIM Indore in 2023. Post that, currently I am teaching at IMT Ghaziabad College. So my area is organizational behavior, and I have done my thesis was on gender-based violence, where I conducted ethnography with Nari Adalat. Like currently I am at IMT Ghaziabad, and from next month I am joining IRMA Anand as an assistant professor there. So my research focus in the areas of critical management studies, and mostly I use post-colonial feminism lens to study the struggles of humans and humans collective. For the creative contribution, I am thinking for like to make some blogs or some creative output from my thesis. So currently I have published my first essay from my thesis in the Gender Work and Organization Journal, which is a critical journal, but it is more of an academic piece. So I want to make it is more accessible so that people in general can also read the work. So I'm thinking in that direction. And yeah, apart from that, I work in gender-based violence and gender inequality topic, and I'm so happy to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Please read Amrita Das's, she can't speak, she has a throat problem. She
So,
has written in the chat box.
so should I read on behalf of her or?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'll start with the beginning. Amrut RH is a PhD scholar from Yenpoa University, deemed University, Mangalore, Karnataka. Proposed in-depth knowledge about gender-based violence since it's a new topic for her. Till now, she was concentrating on health issues. Recently, started working on environment, gender-based violence, etc. Since public health has no longer, since public health has no border, and gender-based violence against men and its impact on physical, mental well-being will be my topic. I have joined the fellowship because I wanted to do more research on gender-based violence, as my thesis is also on the same. I want to write research article on women language system from the psychoanalytical and auto like I do not know the pronunciation of this word perspective. I will write article and blog also.
Ontological perspective. Yeah.
Ontological perspective. I will write article and blogs also, and this will make this will be my takeaway from this fellowship project. As I am a lecturer, scholar, literature scholar, I will be focusing on these mentioned issues through novels.
Fine.
Okay. So can I introduce myself?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is Rifat Ali Fatima from New Delhi. First of all, I would really thank Dr. Manisha Gupte. Like in the very beginning of the session, she had addressed most of my queries, because I'm a psychologist working in public health from past almost 8 years. And about domestic violence, I'm working in community with vulnerable population like the migrant population or the domestic workers. So they do have an issue of domestic violence, but they do not have a say to address or to share this the problem with anyone around. So as it was discussed in this meeting, like कि वो बोल भी देंगी तो फिर वो वापस, मतलब वो कंप्लेन कर देंगी तो वापस अपने पति के पास जाएंगी. तो बिकॉज दे डू नॉट हैव एनी, लाइक उनके पास कोई दूसरा रास्ता नहीं है, बिकॉज वी हैव नॉट nurtured the society in that way. Like companion चाहिए हम सबको, but we do not know how the companion has to be. Like एक physical structure is there, and in, I would not say about any community, but in Indian system it is said that husband is the roof and a woman has should have that roof. अगर वो roof चला जाएगा तो उसकी life खराब हो जाएगी. So and जैसे मैम ने बताया that I had came across several people like कि मैम पति मारता है तो क्या मेरा ही तो है पति, मारता भी वही है, प्यार भी वही करता है, 2 वक्त की रोटी भी वही. So this is the say of the community, like जो लोग बहुत बुरी कंडीशन में रह रहे हैं, खुद डोमेस्टिक वर्क कर रहे हैं, हस्बैंड को वो खिला रहे हैं, हस्बैंड इज अ अल्कोहल अब्यूज, मारता है, पीटता है, बट दिस इज हाउ पीपल. बट अभी जैसे मैम ने एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट मतलब दिस इज अ टेक अवे फॉर मी कि जैसे मैम ने एक बात बताई कि दो वी कांट डू एनीथिंग ऑन दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम बट वी कैन नोट दैट पॉइंट दैट ऑल दीज पॉइंट थिंग्स वर बीइंग रिपोर्टेड एक्शन बाद में भी लिया जा सकता है कीपिंग इन माइंड ऑन दोस लाइक पैटर्न ऑफ इंसिडेंट्स सो दैट इज समथिंग वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर मी एंड मुझे लगा दैट आई शुड हाईलाइट दिस सो द टॉपिक आई वांट टू वर्क ऑन दिस सो मेरा एक लॉन्ग टर्म टॉपिक था आई एम अ साइकोलॉजिस्ट अभी तक पीएचडी नहीं करी है सो द लॉन्ग टर्म टॉपिक दैट आई हैड वाज कि impact of gender based violence on a child's personality and its long term effect because abhi what I am coming across like abhi jo contemporary readouts देख रही हूँ मैं not literature paper research वगैरह नहीं but still जो case studies हैं most of the women around like they are not able to marry अभी जो मतलब जो contemporary state of women around है कि they are not able to marry because they have seen their mothers they have seen the elders of their family that कि mother को वो say नहीं मिला है they have कोई window नहीं था कोई communication नहीं था so that women अभी जो upcoming महिला है जो औरत है वो उसके पास ना वो चीजें नहीं आ पाई हैं and she is being afraid of that so I want to highlight that I want to explore that section अभी it's a very beginning of the thing but I'm sure with discussion with panelists आप बहुत मतलब आप लोग बहुत अरसे से काम कर रहे हैं so I'll definitely get an insight and I would like to explore this topic and थोड़ा intervention like how to because इस तरह का डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस या जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस या किसी भी तरह का वायलेंस एक जो बच्चा होता है उसकी मानसिकता पे बहुत असर करता है एंड नॉट ओनली एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम उसके फ्यूचर लाइक दे आर स्टडीज दैट shows evidences that अगर if a child is like उनको directly abuse भी नहीं मिला है because but they have witnessed on someone else so they have a tendency to have a picture of frame and उनके अंदर खुद वो apprehensions होते हैं so I want to work and explore that topic and I know it's a very huge thing but like I'm thinking कि आप लोगों से सीख कर I'll be doing something with that thank you so much for the opportunity and इतना सारा समय देने के लिए thanks
Thank you, Rufus.
Yes, thank you, Fatima ji. We have one introduction in the chat box, Apurva ji. So she says hello to everyone. She says, I am CEO of QNet Foundation. We work with LGBTQIA plus community and marginalized women. I'm looking forward to understand gender-based violence beyond gender binaries and ways to prevent it in order to create safer and inclusive society for all. Yeah, so she says that.
Neat foundation. Yeah.
And now we can move ahead with Ruchi Jain. Ruchi ji, you can share your introduction now.
Yeah, hi everybody. I am Ruchi Jain. I'm an architect, an interior designer, and an artist. Currently researching digital technologies in Indian retails and supermarkets. My work explores how technology shapes consumer behavior, retail environments, and systematic, efficiency in commercial spaces. While my primary research focuses on digital transformation in retail, I strongly believe that technology, design, and digital platforms can also be leveraged to create awareness, provide support, and drive systemic change in addressing gender-based violence. Domestic violence is not limited to intimate partners. It also exists within households, among siblings, domestic workers, and even in employer-employee dynamics. Understanding power structures in both domestic and workplace environment is crucial for building safer and more equitable spaces. So through this fellowship, my key takeaways will be gaining insights into intersectional challenges and systemic interventions in addressing the global thing, and also exploring how technology, data, and digital communication can aid in advocacy, reporting mechanisms, and community-driven solutions. Engaging within a diverse group of fellows to understand multidisciplinary approaches to safety and empowerment. This is what I aim to learn from this and share and contribute to this important initiative.
Thank you, Ruchi. Very exciting.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Can we have anyone else? Durga ji, if she's here, or Rinku ji can share her introduction if she's able to speak.
Yeah, Rinku.
Hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
So hello everyone. I am Rinku. This is not my voice. मेरा गला खराब है. I can have a better voice. But my name is Rinku. My pronouns are she and her. I am a Dalit Koi person. I belongs to Delhi and Bihar both. That is another story. But I wanted to during this fellowship, what I wanted to bring also, there is this one poetry that I read by Jacinta Kerkata. उनकी कविता है महुआ चकित है, and it such beautifully talks about the tribal women and the violence she faced in the fields. That really inspired me. And I want to explore, are there any more literature in terms of poetry? Myself is a writer, and I have talked about domestic violence from the lens of a daughter. तो उसके ऊपर नेटल वायलेंस कैसा होता है, और जैसे डॉक्टर मनीषा भी बता रहे थे कि घर के सेटअप में जिस तरीके का वायलेंस होता है, and like the layer of parent being, in the system of family and household termed as gods and everything, उनका violence हम किस तरीके से normalize तो करते ही हैं, but the choice and autonomy of a women and women's body, how that is also negotiated and compromised. That is what I have figured out in my past years of work, through my poetries, through my stories. So I want to talk about the series of poetries घर, जिसमें मैं घर के narrative लेकर आना चाहती हूँ कि घर कैसे is a site of depression for most of the मतलब a lot of daughters, and then like coming from a Dalit family, वो कैसे फिर gender based violence का अपना एक layer लेकर आता है intersectionality का. That's what I wanted to do, other than so I also do really like seeing, watching memes. So I also want to explore that in a AI situation, in a world जहाँ पे हमारे movements बहुत shift हो रहे हैं और एक digital world भी है, उसमें जब हम देखते हैं कास्ट पे मीम बन रहे हैं, विमेन पे मीम्स बन रहे हैं, उस मीम का किस तरीके से how we can see meme as one of the tools, and a stakeholder that needs to be challenged. So that's what I want to do. I'm Rinku. I have done my master's in women's studies from TES. Happy to be here, and hopeful we will connect more and more. Shukriya.
Okay, definitely very inspiring. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Rinku ji. Yes, so can we have anyone else? Yes, Durga ji.
Hi, thank you so much, ma'am, for this opportunity. It is really valuable workshop. My name is Durga Hole. I completed my post-graduation in social work with specialization in criminology and justice from TISS. And I'm looking for research opportunities. Or from this fellowship, I'm thinking key research opportunities that focus on amplifying the voices of Bahujan women and understanding the structural barriers they faced in accessing justice and support system. Because I have experience while working with prisoners as a student of CJ, that how things started to change when it comes to women, like how the concept of justice change. So that's I want to explore in this fellowship, and I hope this is huge topic अगर हम सोचते हैं तो, but I think with your support and guidance I can able to break it. Thank you.
Thank you, Durga ji. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I am Lydia. I am currently teaching in IIM University. So I teach journalism related subjects, and I've done my MPhil in media studies from Christ University. So I'm at that juncture where I have to do my PhD, and I want to do PhD in an interdisciplinary subject. And so because of that, I am venturing into media representation and gender studies. That's when I saw this opportunity by IMPRI about ending gender-based violence fellowship. So I want to understand more about it. and that is why I thought I will try for this fellowship. And it was quite an insightful session today. And yeah, I just wanted to listen more, and I didn't have questions at the first class itself, but this was quite inspiring. And for my creative side, the creative contribution, I would actually planning to do something on assessing the role of women in cinema collective in combating gender-based violence in Kerala. So I've always seen that there have been many criticisms against WCC. So I wanted to understand more about it, and so before that, I wanted to understand what exactly is ending, the gender-based violence and all of that, so that I'll be able to understand more about the research topic as well. All right. Thank you so much.
Hello,
Hello.
okay, you go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. Hi, my name is Paridhi Siksaria, and I've done my bachelor's in journalism and mass comm. I'm planning on doing my master's in human rights and gender rights because I'd like to pursue development journalism. Uh, Through this fellowship, I want to talk about FGM, जिसे फीमेल जेनिटिलिया म्यूटिलेशन कहते हैं और हिंदी में हम इसे खतना कहते हैं. आई बिलीव अभी जो हमारा भारत न्याय in our new law book, there is no mention of sodomy. There is no mention of. There is only they've clearly stated women. So anybody that does not recognize themselves as from the gender woman, uh, reporting crimes is really. It can be something to navigate through. So. So now FGM talking about it feels a little ambitious, but that's okay. I hope to write a paper on
Yeah, it's important.
Hello, I am Rudra Chatterjee basically from Kolkata, West Bengal, but currently after completing my graduation in Bengali Literature and Language from Dadar University, currently I am pursuing postgraduate program in development management from Indian School of Development Management in Noida. I am interested. I got interested in this fellowship and for this 3 months course because for after coming before coming in for the course in Noida, I was interested to work with the communities, mostly in the with the women and child empowerment section. And I don't know how, but coincidentally, I was reading a book. The name of the book is Spotted Goddess by Roja Singh. So it talks about the uh, feminist movement in South, and and on that day suddenly I don't know how, but this advertisement of this course came up on my screen, and I went through the course outlines and I registered myself. But throughout the course I would like to know about the details of how the gender-based violence is increasing, and how there are the loopholes in the existing laws and public policies currently. And for the creative part that you said, I would like to write an essay on I would like to. I already have written it in the Google form that we got to fill up. But the title or the subject of my essay would be how women are the actual minorities of India, and that is according to I'm focusing on the intersectionality. Like even if any religion other than the Hindus are religiously minorities in India, any and the other marginalized castes, but inside the caste or inside the religion also, the women and the children are the most vulnerable and the minorities, because they are also the males get the more exposure to the society and more privileges. So that would be my topic to work on.
Internal patriarchy and external patriarchy, both of their double whammy, which they have to face. Nice.
Yes. Thank you so much. We have Bhakti ji now. She can share her introduction.
Hello everyone. I am Bhakti Gaikwad. So currently, I am a PhD scholar at Pune University, pursuing my PhD in changing nature of gender violence through postmodern and feminist framework. Here, I am trying to understand what are the new forms of violence that have propagated since postmodernism and how the picture of violence has changed. And that is why I feel that this particular fellowship was a good choice for me, that I would be able to understand the nature of violence as well as what are the current ways in which this violence which is perpetuated can be stopped or help somebody stop this violence. So something that can bring theory to praxis, uh, and that way. And the thing that I am more interested in, the publication opportunity, where I feel that I myself worked as an assistant professor for 3 years. So I was a young assistant professor where I was exposed to, some kind of, wouldn't say matlab, uh, psychological or that kind of violence where harassment from not only the colleagues but students as well, being a young teacher as you face. So I want to bring that particular thing forward and maybe work on that a bit more. So that is what I am planning to do.
Correct. It will be really a nuanced study with the gaslighting and emotional blackmail and violence that you will be taking care of. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Like we have heard all the participants, and it's been so good to hear about their work and the expertise. I guess there is one participant has been left, Nandini Sharma ji. Ma'am, have you given your introduction? Nandini ji?
Yes, I was the second one to give my
Yes, yes, yes.
introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Ishrat ji?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah. As I have already introduced myself that I am pursuing my PhD in Women Studies in Aligarh Muslim University. And I want to share some points with my introduction. I am not a victim. I am a warrior.
I'm a warrior.
Because, yeah,
You are a warrior.
I am mother. My daughter is 3.5 years old, and I am fighting. Really, everyone is opposite with me that you have fighted, you are doing this, that, you are filing cases. But I am still strong that I have to do. If I sacrifices everything, as I was posted as a assistant professor in one of college, but unfortunately I resigned there due to my husband and in-laws. They do not give me permission. As I have, when I joined, they told that you can go, and after 3 or 4 days I resigned. After that I already throw my PhD also for 3 or 4 months to continue my family relation, all that shit. But I am now happy that that shit was really a part of my life, and I can say that was the worst part of my life. I am doing my PhD in maternal health care services, but aside that आई मतलब मैं अपने एक दोस्तों में मैंने कुछ ग्रुप्स बनाए हैं जहाँ पे मैं अपनी नॉलेज, यानी कि व्हाट इज जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस, ये हमारी फैमिलीज में कैसे होता है, जैसे पेरेंटल फैमिलीज में कैसे होता है, उसके बाद हम लोग ससुराल में जाते हैं वहां पे कैसे होता है, व्हाट इज मैरिटल रेप, इन सब चीजों के बारे में मैं अपने ग्रुप्स में कनेक्टेड करती हूँ पीपल के साथ, तो उन लोगों को ये इंफॉर्मेशन देती हूँ कि आप लोग कैसे इस चीज से बचिए, इस चीज को रिकॉग्नाइज कीजिए। तो दैट आफ्टर दैट कि मैं और लोगों से कनेक्ट हो रही हूँ, और मैंने इसलिए ये फेलोशिप ज्वाइन किया है ताकि आई विल एनहांस माय नॉलेज, दैट आई विल एक्सप्लोर इन ग्रुप्स।
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me again the time.
Yes, we have one last participant who is left, Debharti Chaudhary ji. Yeah, she can introduce herself and then we can move on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Debharati. I am primarily a socio-legal researcher, and I'm currently a research fellow with the Global Campaign for Dalit Women. It's actually great to be back to another IMPRI course because I did the Law and Public Policy Youth Fellowship. And yeah, it was an absolutely wonderful experience. And I'm just glad that I've been able to keep up my research work till then. And this just felt like a very logical second step for me here. So yeah, and today's session was absolutely brilliant. So I'm eagerly looking forward to the upcoming sessions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so do we have any other participant? I guess we covered everyone, and if we are missing out on anyone, please just kindly let us know. Yes, we have covered everyone, and it was so wonderful to hear you all. I guess now we can move ahead with the formal vote of thanks.
Yeah.
And Manisha ji is here with us in the meeting right now.
No, I don't see her name.
Yeah, it's been quite an hour. So yeah, we have been here with us. Yeah, so she had to leave. No worries. Okay, we can move ahead.
Yeah.
Yes. So as we conclude day one of ending gender-based violence fellowship, I, Purvi Narayan, on behalf of IMPRI, Gender Impact Studies Center, GISC, extend my heartfelt gratitude. We sincerely thank our esteemed expert, Dr. Manisha Gupte, for her invaluable contribution and engaging us in a powerful discussion on intersectional and community-based responses to gender-based violence. It was
Purvi?
indeed, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I think we missed out on the chair remarks, and I think we can also take few closing remarks from Manisha ma'am as well. I can see
Yes,
her on the
yes, she may
screen.
join back. Yeah, absolutely.
So we can start with Manisha ma'am giving some final remarks for us for the day, and we can follow up with Vibhuti ma'am, and then you can proceed with the formal vote of thanks.
Fine.
No, I just want to say that I'm just overwhelmed to be, with such an exciting group with people coming from so many different backgrounds, doctors, architects, researchers, poets, writers.
Journalists.
And I think it's absolutely a fascinating group that's come together. And I'm sure that, with all your energies of seeing the world differently, seeing the same world differently will really add more lenses to what happens in, what happens in terms of discrimination in architecture, for example, so many different spaces, homes, how they're constructed, what do women architects get to do or not get to do, etc. So I think, it's quite challenging, and it was absolutely fantastic to have put this course together. So the whole, the team, and, with the very able and, enlightened leadership of Dr. and Professor Vibhuti Patel, I'm sure that this is going to be a very good experience for everybody. I really wish you all the best and more power to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Vibhuti ma'am, you can go ahead with your remarks
Yeah,
now.
I think after a brilliant, thought-provoking and a highly engaging keynote address by Dr. Manisha Gupte, that nothing is left out in terms of the scope and discussion and vision and missions and future. And also she ended with the hope. So that's very important. And I think despite backlash of violence, women are not just silent victims. They are survivors who are questioning, who are trying to rebuild their shattered life. I think that emerged so well. And I think internationally also, globally also, the example of Gisèle Pelicot, a French woman who was raped by unknown man over 10 years after being drugged to sleep by her husband. And I think she decided not to remain anonymous. She went public, and it has energized so many youth now who were victim of child sexual abuse. No, the 299 children who were abused by the doctor, they have also decided to go public. They said they got energy to fight against such menace because of Gisèle's this thing. So it's a one person trying to challenge the hegemonic power that also opens the windows for so many of us. And I think my favorite poet, Maya Angelou, who was herself a survivor of child sexual abuse, and she was so painfully, extreme form of violence was perpetrated by her stepfather after her mother left her in his custody, that she had lost her speech. It was her empathetic teacher who gave a safe space to her, and she spoke about her experience, and then she took out all her feelings to her poetry. And I would like to read the most powerful poem, one of the most powerful poems that she has written. I know why the cage bird sings. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and deeps her wing in an orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down her narrow cage can seldom see through. Her bars of rage, her wings are clipped and her feet are tied. So she opens her throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown, but long for still, and her tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. Free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wings soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and her naves the sky her own. But a cage bird stands on the grave of dreams. Her shadow shouts on the nightmare scream. Her wings are clipped, her feet are tied. So she opens her throat to sing. A cage bird sings with a fearful trill of the things unknown but longed for still, and her tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Since Manisha ma'am is also been here with us, I would like to take the opportunity to convey my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Manisha Gupte ji again for not only sharing her insights with us, but also, patiently answering all the questions. Ma'am, it was so wonderful to hear you throughout the session, and we look forward to learning from you in the future IMPRI events too. We hope to see you again, ma'am.
Her keynote will always inspire cage
Yes,
birds
ma'am,
to sing
absolutely.
and ask for freedom, because it's going to be in public domain. It's going to be streamed everywhere. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I guess we are good to go. Priyanka ma'am, can I proceed with the formal vote of thanks now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, everyone. So this brings us to the end of the day one. We sincerely thank our esteemed expert, Dr. Manisha Gupte, for not only sharing her invaluable contribution, but also engaging with us in a powerful discussion on intersectional and community-based responses to gender-based violence. We thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, for convening this session and for chairing the session. A big thank you to all the participants for their enthusiasm and encouragement and their engagement with us throughout the session. Your active participation and curiosity enrich our discussions and make this a meaningful learning experience for all of us. Likewise, so session readings and resources will be shared via email. A video recording of today's session will be available for reference. We look forward to seeing you on March 12 at 6 p.m. IST for our next session featuring Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida and Dr. Kirti Bolini. If you're watching this session later on YouTube, listening to us or like on our various podcasts or reading our publications, we truly appreciate your engagement and support on the various channels. Once again, I would like to thank for being with us for this initiative. Wishing you a good evening, a great evening ahead. Thank you everyone for joining in and being with us. Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Pupurvi, for moderating the session so well.
Always been a
Thank
pleasure, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.